Good evening, everyone. If you're able, please can I ask that you remain standing whilst my chaplain, Canon Andrew Holliday, offers prayers for the meeting.
So let us pray for this meeting this evening and for those things which we're asked to discuss. Let us pray for all those that we represent as councillors within the borough and the cares and concerns that we have for each of them. For Charles, our King, and our nation. And we pray for the nations of the world, particularly those in conflict at this time. We pray for peace. And as we gather this evening, let us be mindful of the decisions that we reach as they affect each member of this borough, and that we may do all for the good of all, in the name of Christ, as we serve God and serve one another. Amen.
Please be seated. Good evening, everyone. I'll run through some housekeeping prior to tonight's business. We're not expecting a fire drill tonight, therefore if the alarm sounds, please can you follow officers who will lead you to the nearest fire exit, and we will gather at the assembly point on Believe Square. Hopefully that's not going to happen because it's raining, isn't it? Officers will assist members of the public gallery and please follow the instructions of the officers if you are up there. Can I remind members of the need to respect each other? I will continue to chair these meetings fairly and to show impartiality. Members of the public are welcome, but should be aware that they should not disrupt or interrupt the proceedings. Disruption may result in removal from the public gallery or an adjournment of the meeting, in accordance with Rules 18 and 19 of the Council's Rules of Procedure in the Constitution. The rules for conduct for the meeting have been circulated to members in advance of the meeting. Item number 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have apologies from Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Harding, Councillor Hodgkinson, Councillor Kenny, Councillor Paul Prescott, Councillor Jeanette Prescott, Councillor Ramsdale, Councillor Talbot, Councillor Vickers and Councillor Wakefield. Are there any other apologies, members? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Item 2, minutes of the meetings held on the 24th of July 2024. I will move the acceptance of the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of July 2024 as a correct record. Leader, do you wish to second?
Happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Can I put the minutes to the vote? All those in favour of accepting the minutes, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you, the minutes are accepted. Mayor's announcements. Keely Hodgkinson's gold medal. On behalf of the council, I would like to offer congratulations to Atherton's Keely Hodgkinson, who won the gold medal in the 800 metre race at this year's Paris Olympics. Keely was awarded a star on Lee's Walk of Fame earlier this year in recognition of her sporting achievements and contribution to the local community. That star has now been given a special makeover to mark her recent victory. Thank you also to Atherton Ward councillors who recently arranged for the phone box in Atherton to be painted gold in her honour, utilising their Brighter Borough funds. The Wigan 10K. I'd like to say a very big well done to everyone who took part in this year's Wigan 10K on behalf of their charities. And a special thank you to the Council's Progress with Unity team. The team ran on behalf of the Mayor's charities, which, as you know, is Wigan and Lee Hospice and Talk First. A mention too to Councillor Reedy, who raised over £2,000 running in memory of his best friend, and Councillor Hunt, who raised over £1,000 for Daffodil's Dreams. Well done to everybody that took part. I'd like to also to say congratulations to Wigan Rotary Club, who were the latest recipients of a star on Believe Square last month. For 100 years, they've been at the heart of the community, supporting local charities and causes and raising hundreds of thousands of pounds. Item D. Next month sees the return of the Our Town Awards and the Believe Sports Awards. Good luck to everyone who has been shortlisted, and I wish you all an enjoyable evening. Thank you to the council teams who have arranged the ceremonies, and this year it's being hosted at the Edge in Wigan. I would like to also take this opportunity on behalf of the council to congratulate Suzanne Ward from Astley, who has been granted the prestigious title of Queen's Nurse in recognition of her outstanding care of Derryn House Children's Hospice. Item F. I would like to mention how honoured I was yesterday to be present at Gorton Monastery to witness Roy Wood from Aspel being awarded a British Empire Medal for his services to wrestling and young people, and the award was presented by the Lord Lieutenant. Item G. It is with deep regret that I refer to the death of Honorary Alderman Ernest Swift, who passed away on the 27th of August 2024. His funeral was held on the 11th of September for family and close friends. Ernest served as a councillor for Orrell Ward from 1988 to 2000 and also served as Deputy Mayor in the 1999-2000 municipal year before being made an Honorary Alderman in September 2000. I have written to Ernest's family to offer condolences. I now invite members to offer any tributes if they wish to. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for writing to Ernest's family. I know it says Ernest, but he was known as Ernie to everybody else. Ernie was one of life's nice guys. He served the council and served the people of Orrell for a number of years. And certainly, if he did have a flaw, the only flaw he had, he supported St Helens. But we never held that against him, honest. But certainly, Ernie will be missed by his friends and his family. And like I said before, not a lot to say other than Ernie was a very nice guy. And I hope the family get the comfort they seek from the letter that you've sent them. Thank you very much.
So at this point, I'd like to request the council stand, if you are able, to observe a minute's silence in respect of Ernie. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Item number 4 on the agenda, declarations of interest. The monitoring officer has provided advice to all members and relevant guidance has been issued. Members are asked to consider relevant interests for the purpose of this meeting, and if there are any interests declared, members must leave the room during the relevant item. Please fill out the form on your agenda and return this to one of the Democratic Services offices at the end of the meeting. Item 5, the update from the Cabinet portfolio holders. I now invite the relevant Cabinet portfolio holders to deliver their updates. Councillor Anderton, I believe you're first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I just want to give a very brief update on some really positive actions based on some of the motions as well that were delivered in this chamber last year. So one of them being around off-road bikes and vehicles. The multi-agency response that we've developed with GMP, many of you may have heard of it, Operation Hurricane. It was developed out of Operation Handbrake, which was kind of quite strongly led by this council and some really innovative thinking. Over the last 3 months, a lot of resource has been plugged into that now, and we've had 36 days of targeted action around the borough. 208 hours worth of patrolling, and that is equated to 42 vehicles, bikes, quads, sometimes some electric vehicles being seized. And the approximate value of all that is around £210,000. These were being used illegally in our green spaces around this borough. 13 arrests and summons as well have been taken place, and there's been an increase in the number of Section 59 signs in our key target areas as well. 2,000 leaflets have also been dropped to help increase reporting and intelligence gathering in certain areas where we see this as a major problem, and the council has also undertaken several target hardening initiatives around the borough as well. So I'm very pleased that quite a bugbear of mine for many, many years, I think this year we've seen the most action than we've seen in a number of years on this particular topic, and I'm very pleased that we continue to go from strength to strength in that partnership. Some of the key areas, Bickershire Country Park, Low Hall, Worthington Lane up in Aspel, these are key target areas. Makefield Way as well, we're doing some really great work around there now as well, and I want to continue this. We're taking a moment of evaluation, but it's not something that I want to take my foot off the brake on, so absolutely we will be continuing. Just around the Community Safety Partnership, many of you may know or may not know the Community Safety Partnership has a set of funds. I just want to assure members, and you're happy to ask me over email if you want to have further details, but our funding is now being spread across the borough on a number of initiatives, including the UMA app, which is around safety havens and ensuring people throughout the day and night can open this app and ensure they can get to a safe space should they need it. We're funding Boxing for Better sessions across multiple sites in the borough. Smart Body Sports are also a recipient to kind of target some of our key hotspot areas. And we're also setting up some girl support groups as well, because we are seeing a little uptick in antisocial behaviour amongst girls, young females in the borough. So we're targeting that and using this funding to be proactive. I'd also just like to raise a point as well. We're coming up to an awareness campaign around knife amnesty. We're looking at this as a community safety partnership now to increase the number of boxes, because we only have one in the borough, and it's at the police station. And sometimes that's a barrier for people. They think there's a CCTV camera maybe watching them, and then they'll get them 3 minutes down the lane. It's not the case. But what we want to do is look at where we can get as many knives as possible off our streets, including those zombie knives now, which have been made illegal by the new government. Finally, in October there's going to be a report published by the Deputy Mayor for Greater Manchester around drugs, a drugs review in terms of what's kind of hot at the moment on that scene, if you like. We are seeing as well, having seen some headline figures from that, and it links to again a motion that Councillor Bullen moved last year around vapes. And I was quite shocked to see that we're seeing a number of illegal vapes now carrying drugs like spice in them, unknowingly. So I think there's a lot of work to do in this. I'm glad now that as a partnership here at Greater Manchester level, there's a really big push and a really big drive to ensure that we're putting resident safety, not just in terms of police response, not just in terms of do you have an officer there, but the broader public health impact as well is being taken on board. So thank you very much, Madam Mayor. That's my update.
Thank you, Councillor Anderton. Councillor Bullen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. And I'm going to bring an update on the All Child project. I promised this at the last full council meeting. So, All Child is the chosen name for a pioneering community initiative focused on supporting children and young people in schools where it is identified that they require additional support. First developed in London as the West London Zone project, All Child has come to Wigan through a competitive selection process, and I'm delighted to say that we won. So we're the first local authority outside of London to work with the project. Wigan was deemed to be the most suitable match for All Child's expansion, and it has begun here in September. So what is it? The project aims to create a connected community, working closely with local schools, social services, healthcare providers and community groups to deliver a wide range of programmes, services and support systems that help young people thrive, particularly those who face disadvantage or challenge in their lives. Is it expensive? Who's paying? I thought you might want an answer to that question. The local authority in our schools will make a financial contribution to the programme, but the organisation itself uses its own resources gained from philanthropic and other charitable donations to build up this collaborative network. Each school has an all-child employed link worker, and our schools were involved in this recruitment process. So a high calibre of professionals have taken up these roles in Wigan. How does it work? Well, each school's link worker works closely with the young person, their family and their school to ensure that the right support is provided at the right time and to improve the outcomes with a personalised plan tailored for each young person. Support programmes are provided by the link worker and also by a range of delivery partners who are commissioned by All Child to work in schools. And these partners include local providers such as Wigan Athletic, Lee Leopards, Family Welfare and Speech and Language Therapy. One of the key features of the All Child is its emphasis on early intervention and prevention, which aligns with Wigan's early help and prevention strategy, and also the Wigan Early Help Assessment that is already used widely across our education establishments. How will we know if it's successful? Well, the programme is committed to using data and evidence to inform its practices, continually measuring impact with regard to social, emotional and academic factors to ensure that the support provided is effective. The programme seeks to support children by identifying challenges early and providing targeted support to prevent escalation and ensuring that children and families receive the help they need before problems become more complex. So which schools are involved? Our initial pilot project involves 7 schools in the Lee area of the borough. As part of our engagement, governors and leaders in these schools were fully informed of the programme. And the schools are Bedford High School, St Mary's High School, the Wesley High School, Lee St Peter's Primary, Wesley Methodist Primary, Lee C of E Primary School and Newton West Park. The initial schools were selected based on high levels of disadvantage, suspension, exclusion and poor rates of attendance, because these are the metrics we expect to see improve as a result of the work. During our pilot years, we'll seek to involve more schools, with the proviso that the monitoring and reporting around the pilot demonstrates positive impact. Our additional growth area is likely to be in the Atherton and Tilsley area. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bullen. Councillor Gambles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. Significant milestone alert. So since we started the Here For You campaign, an extra £5,023,532.88, and I'm not missing the pence off, has been brought back to the borough and into residents' pockets. That's just the start of a 10, because we're still going strong and we're determined to get as much money as possible for our residents. We're getting national recognition on the life-changing impact this campaign is having on the borough's residents, and they're all wanting to know what we've done. Well, it's certainly not been done overnight, and there's been a lot of hard work that's been put into this campaign. For example, including the collection of information, the analysis, contacting residents directly, going into the community, working with partners. That's just to name a few. There's much more going on behind that. So my heartfelt thanks to everyone that's been involved with this campaign, whether it's behind the scenes or in front of house. There's the defining factor, though, in all of this, what I feel that what we do extremely well and what the Here For You campaign does, it puts the person, it puts people in the centre of it to make sure that we're all working together to help that person, that family. So I would just like to thank everybody for everybody who has been involved. You all know who you are. And then the various teams are still making sure that it's possible that residents are living more future-proof lives. So they're not reliant on one-off grants. They're not relying on an annual allowance. The support of the identified of the work from the Here For You teams provides certainty so that the residents know what income is coming into their household on a regular and consistent basis. Ooh, sorry about that. One of the target groups, obviously, is our older people, and we've actually done a lot of direct mail to our older people. We've got a lot of community groups that we've visited. We've gone to surgeries, and thank you for your support in that. So there's been a variety of ways. We've actually sent out recently 9,000 letters targeted to people to say, please come and speak to us, come and find out what we can actually help you with. You might have also seen the clips as well of some of our residents, because when we've contacted people, it's as though it's too good to be true. There's something not right. It's a bit of a scam. So what we've done, we've actually had unscripted clips of people who have had life-changing experience as a result of that. They're very emotional, and there is a QR code to be able to have a look at those. But what the good thing about it is those people who were sceptical have become our advocates. They're becoming the people who are actually telling the friends and family to come and get in contact with us. So the momentum of this is really growing. So that 5 million is going to get bigger and bigger on a constant basis. What we do know from the data that we hold is that we've actually got about 4,000 people that is entitled to pension credits that not even coming forward yet. So again, we're trying to make sure that we're targeting that. And the average award, should you actually get a pension credit, because you've got a lot of other things as well, which you'll see on your leaflet, lots of other things as well come forward as a result of that. The average is about £2,677. So that's a significant amount in somebody's yearly income. So that's why there is the leaflets on your desk, which is definitely hot off the press. They've only come available to this week, because this is the newest leaflet that we have. And it's actually making sure that what I'm asking you to do is what you all have done best throughout all of this campaign, is encouraging people to get in touch, come along, speak to us to the event days which have been planned, ring the numbers that are actually in the leaflets, repost the social media information, so it's encouraging people, so it's coming from a reliable source, so they do know it's kosher, it's not actually something that's a scam. And then talk about it in your community meetings and your surgeries. So really just asking to raise the profile. This is a new poster that's going to be going into all of the public buildings. If you want posters of these, we can provide them. If you're wanting to put them in doctors' surgeries, of course, the notice boards and everything else. Same again for the leaflets. We can actually get more out to you. But these literally are just hot off the press at the moment. 5 million is a lot of money. But there's a lot more money that can be brought into this borough, a significant amount. And getting money into thousands of people's pockets in this borough, it's really important. We all have a part to play in that to make sure that happens. So it's really, so with this support and your help, I hope that we can continue to maximise the income in this borough for the benefit of the people of this borough. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gambles. Your timekeeping was impeccable there. Exactly on. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we all know the value of the ability for people to learn starts with learning to read. And I think that's why we felt it was so important that we'd like to introduce where every new school starter in this borough receives a library card. There are a lot of families who probably struggle and don't think as books as something that they need to start thinking about spending money on. But we've got such a rich wealth of facilities within the borough, within our libraries, to help to support young people to learn and to really progress, not just in education, but in life. And it all starts with reading. And I think tonight, by announcing the fact that we're going to issue every new school starter with a library card, and at the same time we hope to encourage their families to take it up as well, we think this is a start in forward with our progress with unity, building on equalities that are out there in our population and giving them a chance to get on that first step in terms of the learning that you need to get you through life. So, Madam Mayor, I'm proud to announce tonight that we are going to issue every new school starter in this borough from now on with a library card, and hopefully their families get on board as well, and then we can see a real progression in our young people's chances within the educational world. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Item 6A. The report on page 19 of the agenda requests that the Council approve the absence of Councillor Wakefield until further notice on the grounds of ill health. I invite the Leader to move the recommendation.
Happy to move the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Is the recommendation seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Do any members wish to contribute? I'll move to the vote then. All members in...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'd just like to wish Councillor Wakefield a speedy recovery and our full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. All those in favour of accepting the recommendation as set out in the report? Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. And I would just like to reiterate that I think we send our best wishes to Councillor Wakefield from the whole Council. Item 6B. The Council is requested to approve the nominations for the local authority governor vacancies and reappointments as set out in the report at page 25 of the agenda. I invite Councillor Bullen to move the recommendations.
Move the recommendations, Madam Mayor.
Do you wish to speak to the report, Councillor Bullen? Are the recommendations seconded? Leader, do you wish to speak? Do any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Bullen, do you want to say anything to sum up? So we'll move to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that vote is carried. Item 6C, appointment of honorary alderman. The Council is requested to consider the report and recommendations of the Honorary Alderman Nominations Committee on page 31 of the agenda to confer the position of Honorary Alderman to former Councillor John David O'Brien, and to hold a special meeting of the Council on the 4th of November this year at 2 p.m. for this purpose. I invite Councillor Reedy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just move it quite briefly, and I'm hoping that it will be passed. A couple of members have visited John, including myself, and we've seen him in his new surroundings. But I want to pay tribute and thank Diane for the work that Diane's done with John over them months, and had him settle in and gone over and above what an officer would have done, and taking a family up to see him and all the things that she's done with him, and listened to John's tales for hours. So that was probably a chore in itself. But I know John, when he spoke to me, he really appreciated the help that you've given Diane. So thank you. I think from the council, we'll want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Is the recommendation seconded?
Second,
Do any other members wish to contribute? So we'll move to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that vote is carried. Item 6D on the agenda, questions and comments at Council. The Council is requested to consider the report on page 41 of the agenda and the minutes of the Constitution Working Group, which took place on the 22nd of August 2024, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, at page 49 of the agenda, and to accept the recommendations of the Constitution Working Group in relation to the proposed changes to questions and comments at council meetings. I invite the leader to move the recommendations.
Happy to move the recommendations, Madam Mayor.
Are the recommendations seconded?
Beg to second, Madam Mayor.
Do any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak on this. And we'll start with saying, why do we have questions? Now, the purpose of questions in any democratic system is to ensure transparency and accountability for all elected members and officers. We are elected to represent the people, and we ask questions on their behalf, as this council does not accept questions from the public. Members also require several minutes to add context to questions, and by removing this allocated 5 minutes will restrict members' ability to effectively scrutinise, which in turn will damage the integrity of this council. Thus, we must be allowed to present our questions ourselves with additional context. Now, I also have concerns about paragraph 2C in the amendment that states a question or comment must not relate to a function or decision of officers. Now, it's our duty to scrutinise and hold this council's policy and decision-making to account. This must include the decisions by officers who should not be exempt from accountability and scrutiny from the public. As a member of the Constitution Working Group, I made this clear at the meeting that these changes will oppress the voices of opposition members and are setting the council on a pathway to tyranny. If this council is afraid of public scrutiny and difficult questions from opposition members regarding their decisions, actions and policy, then maybe they shouldn't be making them decisions to begin with. By implementing these changes to the Constitution, we'll restrict the ability of opposition members to scrutinise the decisions, actions and policy of this council and would challenge the democratic integrity of this very chamber. I would also go as far to argue that this goes against the purpose of the very Constitution itself. Under Article 1.3, the purpose of the Constitution is to help councillors to represent their constituents more effectively. And by limiting us and denying us the opportunity to ask questions with context goes against this purpose. Finally, I'd like to remind everyone in this chamber that with any democratic system, there must be public transparency and accountability, and be open to scrutiny. And those who restrict and deny this are always on the wrong side of history, and that is why I'll be against this amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, you all don't like scrutiny, do you? First of all, Madam Mayor, they stopped councillors going upstairs. Then they even took the phone out the members' room. Then they changed the Constitution to say we can only ask a question about something on the agenda, not the district. Then you made it where there was only 5 motions, so you lot could take 4 of them. I'll write to government this, I'll write to government that, and now we see the latest one. You're also going to limit the questions to 5, so I guarantee what will happen on that, Madam Mayor. They will start now asking questions. Leader, do you agree with us that this, what we're doing, is wonderful? So they'll end up one question amongst us all here. But I'm not angry, because I'm getting used to it. And I don't actually believe it's you lot, because I'm actually starting to really like this cabinet. I think I am. One of, I'll not mention him, one of them even took me for a coffee last week. But I'm afraid what it is, and I don't think it's you, I think you get these things brought to you because my colleagues here have asked some difficult questions, have they? Have they took a bit of the mick with the questions? They have a little bit, haven't they? they've added a little bit here and there, but we could have tackled that without changing the Constitution. Because Paul Watson's exactly right. The whole point of asking questions is to have debate. You already have the power. But do you know what today will be remembered as? Today is the day that the many was frightened to death of the few. You're that scared of a handful of independent councillors that you're changing the Constitution. Now, I look around, I think the big, powerful Labour Party, and now I'm even more ready to go, because I know that whatever we're doing is rocking the boat, and I've not even asked a question, I don't think. So, let me remind you this in finishing. You may take away motions, you may take away questions, you may stop me going upstairs, but we will always find a way to scrutinise you in these meetings. Madam Mayor, thank you. Oh, Madam Mayor, one last thing. I'd like to apologise to you for going off at the last meeting a bit. I was far too irate and emotional, and I'll work on that in future. Thank you very much.
Councillor Jones, thank you for that. Councillor O'Byrne.
Well, thank you for letting me speak, Madam Mayor. I strongly object to this proposal that you're going to limit questions. I was elected as a councillor to ask questions on behalf of my constituents, and by limiting that, and especially by limiting the context, the 5 minutes I can have to speak about it, you're not just silencing me, you're also silencing all the people who voted for me, and the same goes for any of the independent councillors in here. I really do urge you all to please vote against this. We should be able to ask questions. You won't allow public questions in the gallery. I am here, along with every councillor, to ask questions. We are here. The only reason is to represent those who have voted for us. So please, I urge some of you Labour councillors to vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Byrne. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wondered how long it would take before this came to this chamber. First, we've seen motions being sent straight to Cabinet without debate. We've seen various things where you're trying to shut down the opposition all the time. But to see on the report, section 1.5, it has been noticed arising questions for the council. Now, that's our job, is to ask questions and scrutinise why. You know, what we notice on this side, you know, you said about the council meeting go ahead smoothly. But how many meetings have we had what's run over 3 hours? The only meetings that run over 3 hours are usually the budget meetings, when we hear monologues about over 30, 40 minutes from the opposition, where we can't get a word in anyways over the budget, one of the most important meetings going. Since then, and I've watched through YouTube, I watch them quite back, the rough time is usually about 2 hours. We've got 3 hours to speak in here. The portfolio holders average around about half an hour, which we can't debate on as well. You know, they bring up pertinent points and update us, but we can't ask questions on that. So our only opportunity is to ask questions and comments to yourselves. And now you're restricting that. And just like a naughty schoolboy, it's got to be done through the mayor, not by ourselves. The people who represent us are absolutely livid over this when we brought it up today. In a healthy democracy, no one in power should feel too comfortable. They forget who put them there, and it's the people who put us here to ask questions. Councils are the driving force behind good government. And asking questions is how you keep that government good. And it starts here at a local level. And by stopping, not just stopping us, by the way, it's stopping yourselves. I know not a lot of you speak at these meetings, but when you have the opportunity to do so, something you feel strongly about, you can't do it now if you vote for this. So I urge you all to reconsider this and just keep the status quo. There's been nothing wrong with it at all in the past, and there's nothing wrong with it now. This is just a way to dumb down democracy. And I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. Deputy Leader, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, when you listen to some of the grandstanding over there, and particularly from Councillor Watson, you won't believe he was actually at the meeting in the Constitutional Working Group and present when this was discussed and debated. He was there. He was a member of the committee. And I think at that committee, we also outlined that this was not a change to the Constitution as such, but there was a misinterpretation within the Constitution that had previously taken place, and it was correcting what was actually in the Constitution. Now, I said at that working group, because this thing about questions, you can't ask questions, it's democratic deficit. Where do you scrutinise? Believe it or not, Councillor Gerard, this council has overview and scrutiny committees at which everyone has representation from the opposition. There is no limit to the number of questions you can ask in scrutiny. You can ask for explanations and various things. And Councillor Watson is a great example of somebody who, at the scrutiny I go to as Health and Social Care, frequently asks questions and they're answered. So there are opportunities to ask questions through the committee structure. The other thing is, there's no secret about our email addresses amongst other councillors. So any councillor at any time can ask us a question. The reason you can't ask an officer questions at a council meeting is because an officer can't speak at a council meeting to answer it. So actually, that's why you can't ask officers. So there are a lot of opportunities in which way. So you can email, you can phone me, you can bring all your concerns at overview and scrutiny, which are public meetings and which you are unlimited as to be answering questions. The reason you want questions here is to grandstand. And that was evident at the last council meeting. And that's actually what drew out that actually that shouldn't have been able to happen. If you have a question, ask the question, get an answer. Not put down a question, speak for 5 minutes, bring in all loads of other things that you hadn't notified were going to be asked, make a point and grandstand generally. So don't do that. And Councillor Jones very rarely puts down a question. Why? He rings me quite often to get an answer to a question. So if he's ever wanted a question answering or something outlining why, he has rung me on many occasions, and I'm sure he rings other people.
Because you're going for coffee with other people. That's
Yeah, because you were probably at coffee with other people. Chris. So there are plenty of opportunities. It is not damaging the democratic deficit. It's about grandstanding now, and actually the number of options that people have got to ask questions of members, of cabinet, of officers is there, has always been there, and there are a range of opportunities to do that. And this is nothing more than just grandstanding for the public, and it is not damaging the democratic processes of the council.
Councillor Byrne, unfortunately the rules say you're only allowed to speak once. Leader, do you wish to sum up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the Deputy Leader has actually summed up. And by the way, Steve, your sign's been sorted out, mate. The Deputy Leader's right. Both Councillor Watson and Councillor Brealey, both at the Constitutional Working Group. As far as I can see, there was no recorded vote against what we were discussing, and it was a clear indication of where we needed to be with the actual questions that we were dealing with. And there is an ample opportunity for all members to ask questions of any cabinet member, any officer, and they're dealt with accordingly. So I'm happy to move this, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of accepting the recommendations as set out in the report, please show your hands. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that vote is carried. Item 6E, changes to how the council buys goods, works and services and the contract and procedure rules. The council is requested to accept the recommendations in the report set out on page 51 of the agenda in relation to the council's revised interim commissioning, procurement strategy, action plan and updated contract procedure rules following the new Procurement Act 2023 legislation. The report was considered by the Constitution Working Group at its meeting on the 22nd of August and by the Cabinet at its meeting held on the 29th of August, both of whom endorsed the proposed recommendations for approval by the Council. I invite Councillor Riemann to move the recommendations. Would you like to speak, Councillor Riemann? Or with... Oh, sorry. Sorry, apologies. Is the recommendation seconded? Thank you. Leader, do you wish to speak or reserve your right? Do any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak on this. Yes, I was at the Constitution Working Group and I was vocal about this point as well. Going from £5,000 to up to £30,000 for just a single quote, I generally feel would leave the council open to financial exploitation. Now, this is a 500% increase from the current one quote one quote required. So I don't feel this is going to be in the best interest of the taxpayer as it does not offer value for money. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Leader, do you want to speak?
I'm quite happy for Councillor Raymond to sum up.
Thank you, Councillor Raymond.
Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Watson, for your concerns. Madam Mayor, the new policy, or what it's called as Procurement Act 2023, it has necessitated some amendments in the way that we procure, we commission and we contract, and Wigan Council is not in it alone, it's with the rest of public sector. I genuinely welcome this policy because I think this will enhance our ability to develop the community wealth building agenda. That is a big part of our next decade, our planning and our policy. It will help us, it will give us more ability and flexibility to extract that social value from our contractors and suppliers. It will encourage us to actually encourage the small, local and medium-sized businesses to bid for what was previously a really competitive and complicated bidding process, so it will give us more ability. But I do see your concerns regarding the potential of kickbacks and pilferages, as we have seen in the last government, how they have abused the system. But in Wigan, we have been really transparent and we have been very accountable to not only our elected members, but to our public, and we endeavour to continue to do so. And one point that I want to highlight is this is statutory ask. This is not a discretionary decision that is under our discretion, so we have to do it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Raymond. We'll move to the vote. All those in favour of accepting the recommendations as set out in the report, please show your hands. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Just one over there. Thank you, the vote is carried. Item 7A on the agenda, redress policy, housing services. The Council is requested to accept the recommendations in the report set out on page 107 of the agenda in relation to the new redress policy, that ensures the Council is meeting its statutory obligations and legal responsibilities in relation to resolving issues and complaints involving compensation and redress for housing-related matters fairly and in a transparent manner. The report was considered and endorsed to Council for approval by the Cabinet at its meeting on the 18th of April 2024. I invite Councillor Gambles to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Pleased to remove the report, which has also been endorsed by the Housing Advisory Panel in March of 2024. Thank you.
Are the recommendations seconded? Would you like to speak, Leader? Do any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I welcome the report. I think we've said many times emotions and questions, which may be a thing of the past now, about the importance of having a proper schedule and maintenance schedule and prioritise certain issues with housing stock. And we wouldn't have these reports or the Housing Advisory Panel on our backs and I'm paying compensation out. I think we've all dealt with housing issues where it's taken a stupid amount of time to get these repairs fixed when it could have been done within a swifter amount of time, and the satisfaction would have been there from the residents, and we wouldn't have to be having this report or debate. So I welcome the report and I hope to see good progress on it in the future. Thank you.
Leader.
Happy for Councillor Gambles to sum up, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Gambles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not really going to sum up. I'm just because it's pretty comprehensive, the policy and everything else. So there's it's included. We're making sure that it's both clear and comprehensive, and I'm hopeful that everybody else will actually approve this policy. Especially seeing as the Housing Advisory Panel, of which there's tenants and also there's representation from the chamber within the chamber here of both opposition and Labour Party. So hopefully we'll get a unanimous decision on this. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of accepting the recommendations as set out in the report, please show your hands. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That vote is carried. Item 7B, Capital Programme and Treasury Management for Q1. The Council is requested to accept the recommendations in the report as set out in page 137 of the agenda that provides an update to both the Treasury Management and Capital Programme for the period ending June 2024. The report was considered and endorsed to Council for approval by the Cabinet at its meeting on the 1st of August 2024. I invite Councillor Riemann to move the recommendations.
Happy to move, Madam Mayor.
Are the recommendations seconded? Leader, do you wish to speak now or reserve the right? Thank you. Do any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So usually this time of year, I come in here and I talk about the figures and how we're in more debt and what have you. But today is actually more of a question that I'd like to ask. And that is, when you look at these figures, they're about slightly over, slightly under. And I'm always bringing forward ideas now I think we could save money for the council. And then I had a thought, if you was to take my ideas on and save millions for this council, and especially Councillor Briley's, you like that? Would the government reduce our budget next year, regardless of which one it is? So if we make big changes to Wigan in order to get more money to spend elsewhere, would that just result in us getting a smaller budget next year? Because if that was the case, I'd imagine the initiative's not really there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Leader.
First of all, can I thank Councillor Jones for his question? No, it won't alter it, Steve. It will be for the benefit of the borough, which I'm sure Councillor Brearley tells us on numerous occasions. but there will be no reduction in the budget because we save more money. Thank you.
Councillor Raymond, would you like to sum up?
No, thanks, Madam Mayor.
So we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of accepting the recommendations as set out in the report, please show your hands. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that vote is carried. Item number 8 on the agenda, questions and comments. Councillor O'Byrne wishes to ask a question. Councillor O'Byrne.
Thank you for letting me speak, Madam Mayor. I will ask my question and I will take me 5 minutes while I've still got them because I've got to put some context to this question. Could the portfolio holder for crime, police and civil contingencies let us know if Serco and the police are engaging with the council regarding the safety of Serco houses in the borough and reported violent incidents? And the background to this, I've had numerous people contact me and we all know there's been numerous incidents in quite a few Serco houses. This was a letter I got from a lady. Noise, where do I start with this one? They are quiet until people are in bed. Then it's relentless. Loud banging, talking extremely loud on phones. They're talking on the phones on loudspeaker and video calls, so you listen not just to them, but the person they're calling. I'm fed up every night this is happening. I get up at 4 a.m. for work most mornings without any sleep. This can't carry on. It's affecting all aspects of my life. The police have been out to them and we've just been told they need educating. Pity they were not educated before they put them in residential areas. As I'm going out to work, one particular man at 4 o'clock in the morning is sat watching me on the step. He's there again when I come home. I'm frightened in my own home. I had one incident 5 months ago, 2 strangers banging on my door. I looked out the window and one shouted to me to open the effing door. I told him it's next door you want, and then they said this is my effing house. They went round the back of my house, broke my gate, jumped on my kitchen extension and carried on banging on my bedroom window. The police came just after my son got there and the 2 guys hid next door. The occupants of the house pretended they weren't not there, but the police went in. All they got was a slap on the wrist. I'd like to know how many Serco homes are next to councillors. Our homes are devalued. Nobody wants to buy a home next to a Serco home and a rubbish tip behind the houses. You don't know who is in the house. We weren't told that it was going to be a Serco home. Have the men been vetted? We don't know. They could be rapists, they could be murderers. We're being fobbed off at every stage with no one wanting to address this and no one willing to stand up and help us apart from Maureen O'Byrne. Since she sent me that letter in the last couple of weeks, one of the residents of the house came running to her house. He banged on the door hysterically in the middle of the night. He'd been threatened by a knife by another resident. She very bravely led him in, rang the police. The police came, the knife man had run away, so the man, who was a decent lad, was put in a hotel, and Serco have said when he's found, he'll be moved. He shouldn't be being moved, he should be in jail, or he should be deported. And I want to know what is being done about this from the perspective of the council and other organisations before somebody is seriously hurt. That's not a one-off. I've had fights in my street, I've had knives round the corner from me, I've had a lady punched. Please do something about this before we have a fatality.
Is there a response?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't answer that because, again, it's context that was laden with questions, but I will answer the question as is on the agenda. So in terms of directly answering it, yes is the answer, but this question that's on the agenda has several different points to it. Greater Manchester Police attend our community safety partnership almost on a monthly basis. There are several meetings taking place during those periods. Serco do engage with us, but I stood here last year, almost to the day, and said they don't always tell us what their intentions are on certain properties. We tend to find out later. However, I am pleased that we currently do have a procurement ban on Serco procuring more property in this borough, and I will keep fighting for that and keep corresponding with the Home Office. I've engaged 2 MPs with it so far as well. We will keep on with that. But properties, once they are fully leased and agreed with Serco, they are fully managed by Serco. But any incidents such as that should be dealt with and reported to the appropriate authorities. So if it's criminal, to the police, and if it's environmental, to the council, and so on. I am assured by GMP, by our council officers, that any violent incidents that are occurring, and again, there's different levels of violence here, again, which wasn't in the question, but we've just had an example, so I can't give a full response. But I can say any incidents that are occurring are dealt with by the appropriate authorities, such as GMP, and actions are taken to address them. I would refer all members to our serious violence duty and strategy, which was launched this year as well, if you want to see how that partnership around tackling serious and violent crimes in this borough is being done. So assuming that you are referring to asylum seekers, given the company that you mentioned and the houses that are in question here as well, and the narratives we see on social media as well, I take this as the target population you're talking about here. So it's in every asylum seeker's best interest not to cause an issue in this borough or anywhere in the country, wherever they are housed. It will negatively impact their application, okay, quite severely. However, I think what we need to also be clear about is separating the fact that anyone who is not white and commits a crime is not necessarily an asylum seeker, okay? If we do that, or if we fail to do that, I should say, that's the quickest way misinformation and warped narratives get to grips, and we end up with those making judgment based on skin colour rather than asking questions first and getting all the facts. Okay? I'm talking. Have I mentioned you, Councillor O'Byrne? No. But I'm speaking
Councillor
generally.
O'Byrne, I'm sorry, you can't talk now.
Okay. We don't need any more hate in the borough. After what we've seen over the last couple of months, we don't need it here. So we're not a unique town, and we're the only town in the country that have these issues, okay, of serious violent crime, okay? Not targeting asylum seekers in that response I've just said there. We are not unique. Many towns around the borough have issues, okay? But finally, if there is a serious violent crime in this borough, the authorities will deal with it. They will act upon it and ensure that, and we should ensure that it's... Is the Mayor allowing that? Or...
Councillor Byrne, can you tell me or indicate which part of your earlier speech appears to have been misunderstood to clarify it?
That Councillor Anderton is referring to skin colour and even asylum seekers when they weren't mentioned is turning my question into something else. I'm concerned with the victims, not the perpetrators. We're meant to be defend women against male violence. That's my concern, and he's turning it into an agenda of his own.
Thank you, Councillor O'Byrne, but I think Councillor Anderton is just explaining his point of view, and it wasn't aimed at you, I don't think exactly. So I won't allow that point of explanation. Councillor Anderton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through my explanation and answering the question, I haven't mentioned any councillor in this borough, okay? I've talked about generally what we are seeing, feeling and hearing, okay? So my final point here is that any violent crime that takes place in this borough, the authorities will deal with it, okay? Any unique instances that you want to bring to my attention, which you can, will be dealt with, okay? And they should be done, and it should be done so without interference, without conspiracy theories. We should let the justice system take its course and be dealt with swiftly, using the right and appropriate methods. This is what I fully support, and I've stood here many times, that anyone who hears me speak on any incident in this borough, I want it dealt with swiftly, I want it dealt with firmly, but I want it done properly. Because if we don't do things properly, it bites us later on, okay? And just one further point of clarification. Anyone who lives in a Serco property is commonly misinterpreted as living in a HMO. Therefore, everyone who lives in a HMO must be an asylum seeker. That is not the case, okay? We need to start separating out and clarifying the full facts before we jump to conclusions. So to answer your question, all those authorities, yes, do work with the council.
Moving on to item 10, notice of motions on the agenda. A motion has been submitted by Councillor Anderton, which is set out on page 170 of the agenda. This motion will be referred to Cabinet without debate in accordance with Rule of Procedure 9.8, and the motion will come back to a future meeting of Council for consideration. A motion has been submitted by Councillor Hunt, which is set out on page 170 of the agenda. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I won't read out the whole motion, and I'm sure the motion will get the support of most of this chamber tonight. But I just want to be clear in light of what's just been said. Nobody's saying if people raise issues and have genuine concerns about what's happening in terms of people coming over here as asylum seekers and the number of boats, etc. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're racist for having those views. But what I'm about to discuss and put forward tonight is completely different than that. So I just want to make that clear. I don't want nobody going off ranting, saying this is about us calling people racist. It isn't. I've been on enough picket lines and protests in my time as a trade unionist to understand the difference between what took place late July up and down the country. So I have no problem at all with people protesting. It's a fundamental human right, and long may that continue. So, not got a problem with that whatsoever. However, the Southport riot, that's what we want to call it, this was violent thugs intent on causing destruction and even death. If it wasn't for the brave and decisive actions of the police, I have no doubt we would have seen scenes reminiscent to 1930s Germany on Crystal Night, when the Jews in the synagogues were burned to the ground. Sickeningly, we had to endure disgusting scenes of a hate-filled baying mob attacking our police, chanting, "English till I die," pelting them with bricks, bottles, police cars set alight, paramedics attacked, including my daughter, while they tended the injured police officers, and a local mosque attacked. Over 150 police officers, 3 police dogs, and a horse were injured during these riots. And if this wasn't bad enough, far-right thugs attacked a hotel housing asylum seekers and attempted to murder and burn people alive. No one should have to face injury or abuse in their work, and our thoughts are with all those who suffered injuries during the course of their duties. Following this, we had copycat far-right riots across the country, chanting far-right slogans while shaming the Union flag. What type of lowlife weaponised the deaths of children to promote the warped racist ideology? What type of individuals have such little respect for the families of the murdered children? Shamefully, many of those involved in the Southport riot came from Wigan. As of Monday the 12th of August, 975 people have been arrested and 546 charges were brought by the Crown Prosecution Service. 354 individuals, disorder and race hate crimes. Some people have charged with more than one crime. These riots terrified people across the country, with communities cancelling events, shops closing, hotels and pubs being closed down. My ward was affected on Wigan Lane when we had a group of yobs turn up, wrapped in Union Jacks. Probably could lift a tongue but couldn't spell it. And they got nowhere, because once they saw that the bobbies was there, they just quickly scuttled off. My family holidays was affected, as we have a serving police officer in our family. He was tasked to work 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, and my paramedic daughter I've already spoke about, was placed on high alerts. Counter-terrorism police have ranked the threat of the far right as the fastest growing threat to national security, growing much faster than the threat of radical Islam. It is clear that the threat of the far right must be treated the same as radical Islam. Thankfully, the police moved quickly and did a fantastic job in identifying the thugs. This was swiftly followed by criminal courts who handed out heavy sentences that matched the crime. And then, of course, we've got the social media. We know a bit about that in this chamber. I believe there's been a few posts tonight. So the social media began with the usual Muslim asylum seeker, come from Rwanda, just got off a boat. and they even give him a Muslim-sounding name, Ali al-Shakati. The fake name was posted more than 21,000 times by midnight on the day of the attack, simply because it suits their racial prejudice. One post encouraged thugs to attend the Southport rioting, stating, "No face, no case, protect your identity," and then gave the location and the time of the riot. The alleged culprit that carried out the attacks was a practicing Roman Catholic family, born in Cardiff. Even Tommy Robinson in a suit got in on the act, Nigel Farage, posting a video speculating on the background of the killer. He also said some reports suggest he was known to the security forces. Another load of nonsense. Quickly followed by Robinson himself from his five-star hotel sunbed, telling people to get there and show their support. People need to rise up. All lies, false rumours, disinformation, and disgusting and divisive rhetoric that fuel the hatred. The fact that elected politicians are spreading lies is the most terrifying to me. Public service is one of the greatest privileges that you can do in life. And it's vital that even us as local politicians don't take part in this sort of nonsense, spreading lies, rumours, disinformation. We have to all play our part to ensure what we put out is as factual as possible. Madam Mayor, I move. Thank you.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor, and reserve the right to speak.
Do any members wish to speak on the motion? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So first of all, let me join you. I believe in change through the ballot box. Anything that went on that day, all it achieved really was anybody that had genuine concerns about illegal immigration would now be too scared to speak out. And I also support you in thanking GMP, and I'll go one step further. I'll support GMP for what happened at the airport as well. I think one of my colleagues actually emailed them already saying that. There's a couple of issues I have, and it involves two-tier Kia. Why you talk about the changes when there's a disaster and how people use it to the benefit? Our Prime Minister, your leader's done exactly the same. He's used the little girl's deaths to take away our liberties. It's going to get to the point now where you can't even put a Facebook post on criticising the establishment. So everybody's at it, and that's the way it's always worked in this country. There's a disaster, whether it's the right, left, I don't care who it is, they jump all over it. It's just that that side are a lot cleverer at doing it than the thugs was. So I do agree with everything you said, but be careful. And look, do you know what? What's interesting? Do you know who the two biggest groups are who tend to be the most anti-establishment and want our freedom? It's actually the left and right. But because of immigration, they can never find a way to unite. And I know there's many councillors in here that don't want our liberties taken away. So let's condemn them, like Councillor Hunt says. Let's learn from it. But surely let's not take more of our liberties away. I'll never forget after 9/11, I went to a bank in Wigan, and they told me the whole system had changed now with ID and everything because of 9/11. And as a kid, looking through the eyes as a child, you know, not knowing anything, I thought, that don't make sense. And it's because it doesn't make sense. But we see it all too often. I actually think I'm done. Oh, there's one other part. Again, this argument about the far right are now becoming I'm paraphrasing what Councillor Hunt said, a faster growing terrorism than Islam terrorists. Again, what we're doing there, we're using the old divide and conquer, and I don't think Councillor Hunt means to do that, but saying that the far right for doing that are worse than Islam terrorists, I don't think you can put it to that side. I think that is left-wing politicians playing politics. We've had 7/7, we've had 9/11, we've had big, massive... It did say that. It said it's faster growing than Islam extremists. It's not the same, and you know it's not the same deep down. But what you're trying to do, the Labour Party, nationally, is take any swipe at a certain Mr Nigel Farage, because let's be honest, you're absolutely frightened deaf of him. And I'll make you a prediction now in closing. Come next general election, I think Makerfield's going to turn to reform, and I say that as a councillor within Makerfield. So keep the politics out of it, Let's not talk about left, right wing. Let's just call out criminality. Let's support our police and the rest of our civil servants, emergency services. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Merritt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for letting me speak. I want to wholeheartedly support Councillor Hunt's motion, and for similar reasons why he felt very strongly desirous to bring it. I also have a son who's a police officer. After a full set of shifts, he had his rest and leave days cancelled as a police sergeant in Bolton to go on the front line to obviously defend the local area against riots and robberies. It took me back very much to a much younger police officer in 2011 when I was anxiously waiting at home while he was in Salford having bricks thrown at him for 13 hours. I think that the biggest disgrace, well, there were many disgraces around what happened this summer, but I think the fact that people went to supposedly protest against the tragedy and by and large were there throwing bricks at and injuring police officers was appalling, and therefore totally support this motion that's been brought. And I'm very grateful to those other councillors who've said we're very grateful and we want to thank the police for all they do to keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Merritt. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hunt, for fetching this motion to the Chamber. And I all actually agree with giving our thanks to GMP and the emergency services. As the old saying goes, when people are running the other way, they're running towards the danger. And I know only too well, obviously people might know my brother who was quite a senior police officer. My son's just joined the fire service, and his partner's a paramedic, you know, so I fully well know what dangers they put him in. Myself as well, have been in the forces doing emergency relief in places. Yeah, so full thanks to them. And I think we just got to call out what happened in Southport and other towns for what it is. It weren't terrorism. It was just thuggery, and mindless thuggery at that, where people are just running and baiting each other. On both sides, it happened in Bolton, both sides were doing it. I was finishing work in Bolton the night before the riots in Bolton, and two young lads came running towards me when I was walking back to the depot. Where's the riots? They weren't older than 13, 14, but they was going to trying to find this place. They just had the wrong date and time. Yeah, so that's what it was. It's just thuggery. And this is what happens with social media. And the power of social media is unbelievable. The WhatsApp and what have you. Messages go out to all these groups, and you've got baying mobs straight away. It's not terrorism. It's just mindless thuggery. And maybe some of the imprisonments, like people putting a Facebook post on, that might be a bit too much in my book. I think we really need to get to the people who are down on the ground, throwing bricks and damaging people's property and making people fret. But yeah, I fully support this, and I think we should be thanking our emergency services more often than we do, rather than criticise them, which happens quite a lot, which happened at Manchester Airport without the full context of what went on there. And any right-minded person would have seen there would have been some context to what happened there before what happened, and it was proved right. So yeah, fully support this, and we should give thanks again to all our emergency services and the services around, like the St John's and people like that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. Councillor O'Byrne.
Speak, Madam Mayor. I would like to correct some of the misinformation given by Councillor Hunt. The far right have not killed more people than Islamist terrorists in this country. They didn't kill 222 people in the Manchester Evening Arena. They haven't killed young gay men. They haven't killed students. I just want to correct his misinformation on that. I don't agree with terrorism. The far right of any kind. People being called far right who are not far right. That is a problem. Yes, I attended the vigil in Southport, and I did go to what I thought was a peaceful protest. I stood in front of the police and tried to stop attacks on them. So I don't want any insinuations about me, because I'd like to ask Councillor Hunt, can you ever say, as I can, I've never attacked anyone, I've never thrown anything at them. So I don't want to be accused of being any kind of violent person or insinuated that I am, especially by people who are being quite hypocritical. I'm really angry about this. I've thanked the police. I joined the other independents in thanking the police for their actions at Manchester Airport, which obviously we didn't see the full context at it. I've been down to the police station. I've thanked the police in person. But I don't want this motion to be hijacked by Councillor Hunt's own political views. And that is what is just done.
Councillor Anderton.
I just think it's right that I speak as the portfolio holder on this motion as well around that time. And I won't get into what's just been said, because I don't think anyone was pointing fingers at that point. But during the riots, there was a very significant event taking place in Wigan that time, and it was a very tense moment. I was in regular contact with our officers who were staged in Central Watch. And I want to just I know it's not in the motion, but from me, put on record a thanks to our civil contingencies who were running 24/7, more or less, during this period as well, and covering all our CCTV, making sure GMP had eyes and ears where they needed to be. But during those protests as well, we had a very major event on in Wigan, and it was Wigan Pride. And I was really pleased that people still came out. They still, with pride, partied, they drank, they had a really good time, and they showcased the best of the borough on that day as well. But around all that was a lot of preparation, some anxiety in the borough. That's what that caused, that spiral of events caused a lot of people restless nights, as well as our emergency services, which I think I hope everyone in the room is going to thank any blue light service that was involved. But it's just to put on note from my point of view, the role that this council played as a partnership, because we can't do it all individually. We've got to make sure we're working together, we're all pointing in the right direction as well. And I think that's the strength of our community safety partnership over the next 12 months. We know where we need to be pointing, we know what we need to be doing. And thank you to all those who were involved during that period of time.
Councillor Raymond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Terrorists are terrorists, and extremists are extremists. They do not belong to any faith, any creed, or any religion. And as a Muslim woman, I take offense to this. I would urge people in this chamber to refrain from using the term Islamic terrorism or Islamic extremism, because I, as a Muslim woman, do not condone any shape or form of terrorism or extremism, and so as 3 billion Muslims across the world. And Councillor O'Byrne, you may not be a violent person, but in your statement previously you said that these criminals, please let me speak, Councillor Jones.
Councillor Jones, can you tell me which part of your earlier speech appears to have been misunderstood?
Yeah, it was just in regards to when I mentioned, it was me who mentioned the Islamic terrorism. I was literally just repeating that. I fully agree with you. Yeah. Just fully repeating from the motion. Councillor who gave the motion.
Yes.
Sorry for the
my message is for everyone, not just for you. Councillor O'Byrne, previously, no, please, can I speak, please? Okay, right, okay, I made my point. Previously you said that these criminals should be either in jail or they should be deported. So you are implying to immigrants, because only immigrants can be deported, not native people. So if we listen to you, can I please finish? If we listen to you, the level of punishment should be determined by your immigration status. Sorry, Councillor O'Byrne, that's not how the society works, and that's not how it should work. Thank you.
Councillor O'Byrne, you've only spoken. I'm sorry, you can't speak again to the debate. Councillor Cunliffe, as you've reserved your... Yes, Councillor Jones.
But the fellow councillor was shouting a point of explanation throughout that speech. She was well in with time. I understand you couldn't hear it, so it's up to you how you go about, how you move forward. Thank you.
I think the debate's finished now, and I think everyone's had their say, so I think we'll leave it at that for now. Thank you, Councillor Jones, thank you for that, and I apologise if I didn't hear. Councillor Cunliffe, as you've reserved your right to speak as seconder, would you like to speak now?
Yeah, not everybody spoke in this debate yet. I haven't started. I think I totally agree with Councillor Hunt's motion, and I think during that weekend, the police and the emergency services were facing a really, really difficult and very dangerous situation. And a significant number of those were injured, and not just police, but other people, members of the public, shots, damages, cars, the significant amount of damage. And I accept Councillor O'Byrne went with the intention of a peaceful protest. I'm sure that's absolutely true. But what occurred was this real thing about, and I know you weren't involved in that, Maureen, and you went for people. Yeah, so, but what happened was, and that was a result, and I know what people are saying about the far right, but it was far right memes, far right social media posts, posting false information that brought this about. And one of the things I do want to say is members of this council should be very careful what they say. And I'm pointing at Councillor Watson now. What he put on Facebook was absolutely disgraceful. The weekend that those riots were taking place, he was there putting British lions are awakened. Well, no, British jackals were awakened. Thugs, louts, vandals, and actually really dangerous people on the far right. And that's who was awakened, not the British lions, because British people, actually British lions were awakened a bit, because there was quite a significant amount of people coming out supporting the situation and the police and the communities against that violence. And Steve, Councillor Jones, one of the things about, you talk about two-tier care, but it's very important, and I think actually we need more legislation around this, that if you go out and threaten to kill somebody, you can be charged with a criminal offence. Yet the idea that you can threaten people, to kill people, to bomb places, to set fire to places, to kill people, that you can do that on social media has no consequences. It's not right, and it's right that that should be. And so we've seen all these people, and Councillor Hunt gave the numbers of people who've been charged and who are now in prison, and it's exactly the right place for them. And I say about members and what they speak, because again, if I point at Councillor Watson, not only was that British lions are awakened on a long, well, I don't know what he'd been on, a long, really, I think it was about 6 minutes of absolute rubbish, which he came. He's since tried to justify his position and an apologist for those people who've been found guilty of violent disorder and who are now in prison. Because what he says is, these people were arguing against the UK government. They shouldn't be put in prison for arguing against the government.
Councillor Cunliffe, we've got a point of explanation. Councillor, could you please
Well,
indicate...
he hasn't spoken, so how can he have a point of personal explanation?
It has
Point
to
of
be part
order, then.
the speech you spoke.
Well, there's no point of order. You didn't speak. You haven't got a personal explanation. You've spoken on Facebook telling people that all these people who were doing all this damage, who were throwing things at the police, damaging public property, injuring police, trying to set fire to hotels that were where there were asylum seekers, threatening to kill them, with people inside frightened to death for their lives and all that. And I think it's only as a result of our emergency services that nobody was killed during that thing. And then you say, oh, they shouldn't be done this, or they're only doing this, they're only putting them in prison because they're campaigning against the UK government. Well, no, that's not campaigning against the UK government, I'm afraid. So you're a bit of an apologist for those people who are in prison. And as a councillor, an elected member, you should recognise that we have staff employed by this authority, providing services for the public of Wigan, who are from the black and ethnic minority population, and who were frightened to come to work, frightened to go out, and frightened to send their children to school.
Councillor Hunt, I invite you to sum up the motion.
Madam Mayor, for allowing me to sum up so lively debate as probably expected, but I mean, the thing about for me is when they got them in front of the courts, these lot, they very, very quickly, it was all apologetic and, you know, there was no ideology there whatsoever, was there? So it was basically criminals. Just with Councillor Jones, and obviously you're following the Daily Mail, I get that, you know, two-tier Kia and all that rubbish, yeah, I get all that. Civil liberties have been removed. I noticed you didn't mention which ones there was, because there was none been removed, so usual nonsense there. But just let me finish. Oh, go on. That's it again.
Councillor Jones, can you indicate which part of your earlier speech appears to have been misunderstood and clarifying?
Was on about the laws that two-tier Kia is going to bring out, not the existing ones, and that's why people have been put in jail, because we have laws in place for criminals like that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
But you couldn't name them. Yeah. So them figures that I gave out wasn't my figures, by the way, that radical right-wing terrorism is growing faster than anything else. It wasn't me, because I'm not qualified to do that. It was the counter-terrorism police who put those figures out, so not mine. But there's Councillor Gerrard, thank you for your comments and supporting the motion. Although I do disagree with what people put out, and it's already been touched on, it's vital what we put out on Facebook is factual. And just to say, oh, it doesn't matter, it was just a Facebook post. No, it does matter. What you put out there, and you're whipping people up, and you're lighting the torches, and when the flames go off, you just sit back and say, oh, that was nothing to do with me. I just merely put a post on Facebook. So I think we've heard enough from you, Councillor O'Byrne, tonight. Anyway, but just from yourself, I mean, I never said anybody had been killed by these people. I said they'd been injured. So I don't know where you got been killed. And you said people not far right. The problem with the far right, it's a little bit like being stupid. The stupid don't know the stupid, and the far right don't know the far right. So it's simple as that. And what I will say about you, Councillor Byrne, to your credit, you apologised for what you put on Facebook. In fact, you won the Tour de France for backpedalling. So well done for that. That wasn't a problem, that. And saying that I've attacked somebody, well, I have been on picket lines, but I've never thrown rocks or bricks and stuff like that.
Councillor Byrne, that's your second warning.
Yeah, so in answer to a question that was asked who I've attacked, I've been on picket lines. I've never attacked anybody. In fact, most of the pickets protests, I've got on very well with the police. But I think in light of some of the comments tonight, what appear to be that they're speaking against this, I'll ask for a name vote. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hunt's asked for a name vote. We need 10 people to support that. That's carried. So we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please indicate on your pad. If you're against, please also indicate on your pad. That vote's carried unanimously. So apologies, it isn't unanimous with the majority. Motion number 3 has been submitted by Councillor Reedy and it's set out on page 170 of the agenda. Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a bit tame, isn't it, after that one? Can I just say, actually, I think lots of members in the Chamber have supported the AF project. And next year, it's up for review in 2025. And can I say I've lobbied all the 3 MPs locally, and they're all going to support this motion. This year, and I want to kind of, not correct, but explain a bit of the wording in the motion, AF has been increased from 8,000 to 30,000. And where it says it's been a successful year, an increase in numbers doesn't mean it's been a successful year, because an increase in number means there's more children who are out there who need this service. So really, in that respect, it's not a success. It's a success of the way we've debated with it and where we've done it and how we've done that with staff. So that's been the success with it. And we'd hope them numbers would reduce in future, but probably maybe not. And that's why we need this, really. What I've got to say is all the schools are engaged with us on this. But what I would say, what came across loud and clear, I've been out to a few venues with elected members. And I think we'll all remember when people went to, and they had free school meals going back many, many years, that you could always spot somebody who had a free school meal and somebody who paid for the school meal. What we've got with the AF project is you wouldn't know any difference between the people receiving the service and the people who are paying for the service, which I think is a real success of our service and the people that do that. Some of the stuff that we've done, I want to pay credit to some of the organisations who've been supporting this. So Scotsman's, our bridge through the Be Well team have been doing this phenomenal. Sunshine House, Tyler Lee and lots of other community organisations have been doing this through the VSE sector. All our schools, as I've said, the youth hubs at both Wigan and Lee have supported it. And I think what's been a major contributor to this has been our sporting clubs. So Wigan Athletic, Wigan Warriors and Lee Leopards have really got on board and supported this, because we all know that young people and parents will listen to sporting clubs more than they will listen to an authority. And I think that's been a real credit to the owners of Wigan Warriors and Wigan Athletic and the owners at Lee who've really come on with that. Our libraries has been fundamental in doing this as well. So I think really, if you look across the borough, it's been a real jigsaw of everything coming together for the AF project. People have benefited from it. They will continue to benefit from it. But it's really important, and we've said this for 14 years of pursuing the government when the Conservatives went in asking for it. We'll continue to do that now with the Labour government, and we're saying this is really important to this borough, but probably to the country, that the AF project continues in this borough that we've done it. So I'm putting that to the vote tonight, Madam Mayor, and I hope people will support it, because I think it's really important of every corner of this borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is the motion seconded?
Beg to second, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Brown, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
Reserve my right, please.
Do any other members wish to speak? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is nice actually having a friendly motion coming after the meeting so far. It's a bit of an apology, mate, to you all. I said when we got a new government, you won't write to government and ask for things, and second meeting on trot, you have done. Fully support this motion, fully support increased funding and keeping it going. We need it in our borough, especially with the cost of living going worse and worse. I just want to ask, the activities that are in place, we have a few projects going on. One of them, funnily enough, where we had our coffee, Chris. We're going to be doing a forestry school. Councillor Cunliffe pointed to him, Madam Mayor. He didn't pay for it. They give free coffees, really. But, and it was in my ward, so it wasn't quite as glamorous as... But I was wanted to ask, is there any way of possibly looking at fitting some of these extra things we've got on involved with it going forward? I noticed you mentioned things like Sunshine House, that I obviously work with the council, but not the council. Or does it have to be fully council-run stuff? Basically, what I'm getting at is the more things that we can get on board free for kids, activity-wise, the better. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor O'Byrne.
Okay, thank you for letting me speak. I must say I agree that the HAF programme is a fantastic thing to be going on for our school children. And I did fund some of it out of my Brighton borough for not the children on benefits, but the ones sometimes who are just above that level, who can't access HAF because obviously they've got the family have too much income, but sometimes they can end up a little bit worse off. So I just think it's something to bear in mind that there are children really who have not really they're not in a high income family, but they could also benefit from these activities as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. I need my glasses on. Apologies, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to thank Councillor Reedy for such a strong motion. We've all seen the impact of HAF in all our communities, and it does have a positive impact. And I don't want to sound cheesy, but it does change lives because it gives them kids sometimes a meal that they're not necessarily going to have, give them more energy, gets them out doing stuff they wouldn't normally do with the sports teams and sports clubs and so forth. So I think this is a brilliant motion. I think it's going to have unanimous support. And yet again, thank you, Councillor Reedy, for such a strong motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Bullen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for inviting me to speak. And I just want to speak in support of this suggestion to continue HAF funding. I think it's really, really important and significant for the children. And there's loads and loads of examples we could give and reasons why this should continue. But I'll just pick out three. One, it's the range of opportunities that it provides for children that most need it. Sports of all kinds, these have been mentioned, indoors, outdoors, music, dance, arts and crafts, IT, and even a maths club, which surprisingly the children love. The second point is that it's inclusive, and as Councillor Reedy has already said, it's available to everyone. So it's involving children from a wide range of different backgrounds and needs. And thirdly, it's because it's so available. We've managed to roll it out across the whole of the borough. Community centres, schools, sports clubs, libraries been mentioned, Wigan Youth Zone, Lee Youth Hub, church and community halls, and our green spaces. So it's great, wonderful opportunities for our children. And I've had the privilege, as you have, Madam Mayor, to visit some of the HAF projects during the summer holidays. And it's just wonderful to see happy, smiling children and very enthusiastic and dedicated staff. It really has been a credit to Wigan Borough. So I would just say finally, Madam Mayor, for the sake of our children that most need HAF, please support this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bullen. And yes, I did enjoy going to watch all the activities. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for letting me speak. And thank you to Councillor Reedy for bringing this motion to the Chamber. Fully support of this. I think the last Tory government didn't have much to leave behind, but I think this is one of the things that they did do, the HAF fund. Introduced in 2018, I think, was it 2017, 2018? And there must be many kids in this borough who benefited from it, and we hope that can continue. I mean, the 6 main points that I can pick up on this is addressing food insecurity, providing enrichment activities, educational support, supporting needy families, promoting community engagement, and having a long-term impact on children's health and development. And I think, yeah, we should be writing to the government and asking for this to continue. But I would also put a caveat on that, is to see, rather than it just be during the holiday period, maybe like in these dark winter months what are coming, maybe like introduce back the 50p Thursdays that we used to have in our own sports centres, where children can actually go and use some activities there, rather than be walking the streets, getting bored and getting up to no good as they do. So just wondering if that could be looked at, maybe not by writing to the government, but looking at ourselves by bringing back the, maybe not 50p with inflation and food, right, it might be £1 now, but I think that would be beneficial to all year round to children in the borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. Councillor McSteen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a bit of a from organisations that haven't been HAF recipients. And something that I'd ask as a result of this, it's great that we're writing to MPs, it's great that we're expanding this, but can we look to looking at this in a way that's more dynamic so that more organisations or more people that are providing more diverse activities for young people to get on, to get access to this as well in a variety of different venues. I know one of the most powerful things that I've seen, both through delivering and through being out and about and seeing parents, speaking to parents of children that I teach, they've said they have children with additional needs, and they've said HAF. Not only has this been great for the young people, but it's been desperately needed respite for those parents over school holidays as well. And I think it's one thing that we can't lose sight of. So yeah, I'd love to see this being rolled out in a more diverse manner. It has done previously, and I'd love to see that return. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McSteen. Councillor Bryan, as you have reserved your right, would you like to speak now?
Sorry. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Madam Mayor. I'm talking today to strongly support the motion that this year's holiday activity and food programme has been the most successful since its inception. This programme has become an invaluable asset to families across the Wigan Borough, providing not only enriching and educational activities during the school holidays, but also ensuring that many of our most vulnerable children receive nutritious meals in a safe and supportive environment. As a parent, I can personally speak of the transformative impact this programme has had on children, including my own 10-year-old son who is neurodivergent. For children like my son, routine, structure and inclusive spaces are crucial. The HAF programme offers all of these elements in abundance. Through the various activities available, my son has not only developed important social skills, but has also gained confidence and a sense of belonging that is something that is difficult to find elsewhere. The programme offers a space where he can thrive, surrounded by understanding staff who are trained to support children with additional needs. For him and many other neurodivergent children, these programmes are not simply a place to pass the time during the holidays. They are a cornerstone of their development and well-being. However, the benefits of the HAF programme are not limited to children like my own. Across the Wigan Borough, hundreds of children from different backgrounds and with different needs have greatly benefited from the wide array of programmes and services offered. These activities range from sports to creative arts to educational workshops and outdoor adventures. The HAF programme not only keeps children engaged and stimulated, but also helps to combat holiday hunger, ensuring the children who may otherwise go without receive a healthy, balanced meal. For many families, the cost of additional childcare or holiday activities can be prohibitive, especially during these difficult economic times. The HAF programme has lifted that burden for so many, providing high-quality, inclusive, free-of-charge activities that help working parents and those who may be struggling financially. It has become a vital part of the local support network, contributing not only to the immediate needs of the children, but to the long-term well-being of the wider community. The evidence of its success is clear. Feedback from parents and children alike has been overwhelmingly positive, with many stating that the programme has been a lifeline during the school holidays. From my perspective as a parent, I can wholeheartedly agree. My son has gained so much from these experiences, new friendships, a sense of routine, and skills that will stay with him for life. And it's not only about the individual child, the ripple effect of these programmes are felt across families, schools and our communities at large. It is crucial that we acknowledge how important the continuation of this programme is. The current funding has allowed us to build something extraordinary here in Wigan, a model of what a holiday programme can look like when it is designed with care, inclusivity and the welfare of the child at heart. If the funding were to cease, it wouldn't just be a loss for the children currently enrolled, it would set back all the progress we've made in supporting children and families in need. The continuality of this programme is essential to the continued development of so many children across our borough. With this in mind, I fully support the motion that requests the Chief Executive to write to the Minister, urging them to continue, if possible, expand funding for this vital programme. It is in my sincere belief that this investment in our child's future is not only the right thing to do, but the only thing to do if we are serious about tackling inequality, supporting working families and giving every child in Wigan a chance to succeed. We must ensure this funding continues so that the HAF programme can build on its remarkable success. By doing so, we can continue to provide a safe, nurturing space for children like my son and hundreds more across the borough to thrive during the school holidays. For many families, including my own, this programme has been life-changing. It offers so much more than activities and meals. It provides hope, support and opportunities for our children, regardless of their circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Just before we carry on, we will have a 5-10 minute break after this, if anyone's wondering. Councillor Reedy, I invite you to sum up now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I thank everybody for the comments? Just touching on what Stephen Lee spoke about, local areas and the diverse kind of programme. We'll look at that, but I think we'll all realise what we spoke about. It is about funding, so the money can only stretch so far, but I think we'll take that consideration, and when we put the programme out next year, hopefully we'll be putting the programme out next year, we'll look at those areas and make sure that goes to all members and we can look at that. Councillor Gerrard has spoken about his 50p Friday. He's put out quite a lot on you, Steve, over the years, haven't we? Even inflation, it's never gone up your 50p Friday, mate, so we're all right. You should be the Chancellor, I think, but there we are. I'm clearly informed by Councillor Gambles that the youth hubs both run them activities through it. Can I understand before you come and say Atherton's not quite as near as that is, but we will try and look at some of them areas, but it's difficult again, but it doesn't stop members using the Brattleboro to do that. And I think Maureen's kind of said that she's done some of that, but there again, it is all around funding of what we can do. And with everything, there's got to be a cap, hasn't there? Because we can't have everybody, we wouldn't be able to afford to do it for everybody, and that's, there's always somebody will be above that cap. And I think we've done this kind of with the ratio of school meals. What I have got to thank, and I didn't know Councillor Bullen was going to speak really, is thank Jenny. Me and Jenny have worked on this programme for about 4 or 5 years now and gone round and seen how it's expanded and done. So without Jenny's kind of knowledge in education, and she's the brains behind the operation, to work behind this, and we work with staff really closely. But I want to commend Councillor Brown, because it's really difficult in this chamber when you're speaking about personal issues, what you're dealing with. But I think that's really important for this chamber to hear somebody who's actually dealing with that day and day. We can all speak about generically about stuff, but she's actually living and breathing that. And I think that's been repeated through lots of people and constituents and residents. So it's good to hear that. So thank you for that. And I think it came across really well, and I really commend you for that. And I think it was really brave of you to do all that. So thank you, and thanks to all members in the chamber. Thank you.
So can I put the motion to the vote, please? All those in favour, please show your hands. Anyone against? Any abstentions? The vote is carried. So as I mentioned, we'll have a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 8:05. Thank you. Motion number 4. A motion has been submitted by Councillor Cunliffe, which is set out on page 171 of the agenda. Councillor Cunliffe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope this is another non-controversial amendment that gets unanimous support. Last month in August, the LGA published a report on men's health, and they claimed it the silent killer for men. And what it highlights is the enormous health inequalities we've got across the country, to the extent that those men living in the most deprived areas die 10 years earlier than those in the least deprived areas. And in fact, nationally, men die 4 years on average before women. And actually, the healthy life expectancy between the least deprived and most deprived can be 20 years, up to 20 years difference of healthy life expectancy between those men in the most deprived areas as opposed to those in the least deprived areas. And men suffer disproportionately amounts of cancers, heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Part of that is, there are many factors that affect health and health outcomes. 2 of those that particularly impact on men more than women or excessive smoking and alcohol consumption affect their health. In 2022, there was launched a national women's health strategy. And the outcome of that report that the LGA did was calling for the government to introduce a men's health strategy to match the women's health strategy. 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer at some point in their life. 12,000 men a year die of prostate cancer. 52,000 men a year are diagnosed with prostate cancer. There is no national screening programme for prostate cancer. Unlike in women's health, where there are national breast screening and cervical cancer screening, there is no screening for what is a major killer of many men. And also, in terms of suicides nationally are increasing, and just like elsewhere, they're increasing in this borough. 4 out of every 5 suicides are by a man. 80% of all suicides are male suicides. It's one of the biggest killers of young males. And so we need a national men's health strategy to address some of these differences. And the result of that, the LGA, Local Government Association, are calling for that. And I think we should support them in that call for a men's health strategy. Many authorities have things related to mental health within their public health budget and sector. And in fact, one of the big things, and we had it here in terms of men's weight management, was the link with Wigan Athletic and the football club and Wigan Community Trust. Football, of course, is a great way to get men involved in managing their weight, but it's not just about weight and fitness and improving weight and fitness, but actually it was a sport they were interested in. It dealt with social isolation and loneliness, gave people social contact, made them feel better. And so that was something we did here, and many other authorities do something similar. And there are a range of schemes throughout the country. But it's not part of a national strategy. It's just individual local authorities using the public health budget to try and create things. So rather than leaving us all to individually come up with programmes to support men's health, I think we need a national men's health strategy. Now, having said that the number of suicides are increasing, the previous government in March this year they stopped the £57 million funding for local authorities to help those and identify those at risk of suicide. I mean, £57 million in terms of government spending is not a lot. And when you talk about the number of councils with a responsibility for public health, I think it's about 150 odd. You know, 57 million is not a great deal of money. But that was money that was given to local authorities in order to work on men's suicide and those at risk of suicide. And they cut that in March this year. So we want, and I think we should say, we want a reinstatement of that funding around suicide prevention and identifying those at risk of suicide. So clearly men are suffering different health issues than women, but it's affecting their life expectancy and even their healthy life expectancy. In fact, I'll not mention the authority, but it is a North West authority. I spoke to a portfolio holder who was telling me that in parts of her town, the healthy life expectancy for men was 42. it is a real problem. And in terms of what we're talking about now, about numbers of people who were off sick or not at work and the ability to get people back to work, then really concentrating and having a men's health strategy, a national men's health strategy, is really important. And so what I'm asking is that this council supports the LGA on its report and its demand for a men's health strategy nationally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conliffe. Is the motion seconded?
Yeah, I second, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Fletcher, do you want to speak now?
I'll speak now, Madam Mayor. Yeah, very much of what Councillor Conliffe has said, I fully support the motion implementing a national men's strategy. It feels like Keith has copied my notes here, Keith. It's literally word for word. But with the implementation of a women's strategy in 2022, I feel this is probably long overdue. Keith mentioned the stark inequalities in men's life expectancy between the most wealthy and deprived areas. And it's nothing short of a national concern, which has been echoed by the LGA. We're also seeing men dying on average 4 years earlier than women. And that's 133,000 men dying in the UK early through avoidable health conditions. That's 15 every hour, Madam Mayor. And a lot of the causes is the alcohol and the smoking. And Keith mentioned about Councillor Conliffe mentioned the Suicide Prevention Fund, which was ended by the government, I think it was this March, this year, bizarrely. And we all know the stats, we've heard them before, that 80% of suicides are men. And the leading cause of 20 to 34-year-olds, cause of death is suicide. And I have to say a huge recognition has to go to the Andy's Man Club in Wigan. They're doing amazing things in our communities, and I know in Ashton, Makerfield, they're starting to get one up and running there. So I can't speak highly enough of them. They're picking up a lot of the slack that should be done statutorily, I think. But also, as much as we need the support from the central government, Madam Mayor, we are doing our bit at Wigan Council, the Public Health and Leisure team, with the creation of the Prevention Board this January, something I chair, Madam Mayor. And our top two priorities is smoking and the alcohol-related harm. It brings professionals together across the borough to try and come up with innovative ways of working. But like Councillor Conliffe has said, it's not a great way of working, each local authority implementing their own strategies. So we do need the central support and we need the strategy in place. I mean, it can feel motions like this, like a ripple in the ocean of motions, like where's it going to go? But I do know many local authorities have submitted similar motions, and I do feel the weight and the current, well, ripples build a current, don't they, Madam Mayor? So I do feel the momentum is on our side here in public health. And yeah, so I'm happy to second the motion, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just say how much I welcome this motion by Keith and Danny. And I was just going to mention Andy Man's Club, myself, and the great work that they do. Me and Councillor Myler put a motion through about mental health a bit back, and the Cabinet heard it. And we actually wondered if we should have gone more down I think Keith actually mentioned it at the time, about going more down the male suicide route. All of us in here have had friends who've committed suicide. And for me, there's two main reasons. There's the 20 to 24-year-old problem, a lot of times down to Class A drugs, and they can't find a way out. And like groups like Andy Man's Club are brilliant for helping with that. And then there's another reason which probably every male in here has felt at some point. I know I certainly have, and that is the pressures of having a family and providing from them. And especially in cost of living, you're worrying, are you paying for this? Have they got the right uniform? And sometimes men have a real bad habit of not speaking out when they feel this way, Madam. So for me, addiction and debt are two massive reasons for male suicide. And if there's any way in that we can help yourselves, in any way of anything, this council will definitely be supporting the motion, but if there's any way that we can help in any way, it's something internally to get this message more across, or help with, possibly with Councillor Fletcher, we could maybe help with some Brighter Borough for Andy Mann's Club in Ashton, just please let us know. But what a fantastic motion, and yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Hunt.
Well, you won't be surprised at my age that I'm going to support this. For me, it's personal, and I'm sure it is for a lot of men. I lost my dad with prostate, only 56. My brother's got an enlarged prostate. But the problems that you get trying to just book an appointment with the GP, it's a nightmare, and every time you go for an MOT, you've got to actually ask for that particular test. I think it's PSA, isn't it? So you've got to say, can I have the PSA? And trying to get, as we know, we all tackle the receptionist first, don't we? So you've got to get past her to get that. So a national strategy is more than welcomed, and we do need that, because it's as big a, well, I don't know if it is, but I presume it is, like breast cancer, prostate cancer, certainly up there. And losing your father early for a family, whether it be prostate or whether it be through suicide, is absolutely devastating. And but you're absolutely right, Councillor Jones is right in terms of the suicide. I lost a really, really close friend of mine to suicide, hung themselves. And that, it was a shock of it, because you just don't know why this sort of thing's happening. And I sort of tend to agree with the young ones. It might be a little bit of drug stuff like that, but at our age, and I mean, Tony was 50 when he took his life. It was unbelievable, and I got the phone call. It just blows you away. I watched the programme last night, Cause of Death. I think it's on Channel 5, really good. I'm an ex-squaddy, but I've never been trouble with mental health. And this squaddy last night served in the army 30 odd years, took his life, shot himself, and it's just the impact on the family was just absolutely devastating. So couldn't support this any more than I wanted to. So fully support. It does need a national strategy. It's long overdue, and I hope the new government puts some money towards it. So thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak in this motion. Yet again, another great motion, I'm sure, is going to get the full support of this chamber. But what's really quite damning for me is the statistics of the 80% of all suicides are men. Because I think men in general, we're terrible at being open and honest about our emotions. And I think maybe it's a culture that we've all got to change, you know, amongst ourselves, and get rid of that sort of macho culture with men. But in terms of the strategy going forward, I also think we need to incorporate veterans into that strategy as well. Recent research from the King's College London estimated the rate of PTSD amongst veterans is at 7.4%. For perspective, the PTSD rate among the general public is 4%. Now, we had 140,000 soldiers, 90% male, serve in Iraq, and 150,000 soldiers serve in Afghanistan. Now, out of those veterans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, these rates rise currently to 9% of all veterans. But it's estimated that within this group, 30% of them will generate some sort of mental health condition at some point during their lives. Now, as a borough with a strong connection to the armed forces, I would like to just see any mental health strategy going forward to incorporate this group, i.e. veterans. But great motion, fully support it. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cunliffe, for bringing this motion. Obviously, fully behind this, and I think it's been pointed out, you know, men's health seems to go on the back burner. You know, we obviously try to put a brave face on, don't we, anything up, we don't go and speak to people. I've just been looking at a few case studies on the LGA website, what other councils were implementing. I think we could actually do some of them there. I mean, the main one is football, you know, man versus fat and all that. I think that could be a good one, but there's also like reminiscing groups being set up and stuff like that across various councils. But yeah, I'm all for that, and I think we could, as well as the money, obviously we do need money. I think 57 million, as Keith's pointed out, is a drop in the ocean across all the boroughs. We do need that, and we do need to get the message out. But yeah, a national screening programme has been mentioned, like the breast cancer for women, could save thousands of lives of men who don't want to go and speak to the doctor. Yeah, so fully support this, and hope it gets everyone's support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't going to really speak on this until Councillor Hunt touched on a few notes really about GPs and appointments. And I'm sure lots of you are aware in the Chamber what we're doing at our sports stadiums, so at Robin Park and the other week at Ingley, where we've got a full open kind of body of health provision there. But the stuff that we're doing ourselves as a council in them areas is all the screening and everything that goes on in there, because you're quite right. It's difficult to get appointments sometimes, but it's also in certain areas people don't go to the GPs. They don't go at all. I think Steve touched on it. Men of a certain age don't go. They don't think they need to go. But when they're in our gyms, we've had people who've been blued and tooed away and have been diverted to different services. And I know it's something Keith and David we've been working on together, but there again, we've been working with our sports clubs on it, and they've been fully supported, because if you look at the database that sports clubs have and we have, you can touch lots and lots of people. It's a really important issue. I think a few weeks ago I was at a conference and I spoke. Without your health, you've got nothing. We can sit in this chair, but we can debate whatever we want, but if you've not got your health, you've not got anything. And that's the most important thing that we'll ever touch on in this chamber, because it's so important. But I think really, we've got to look at what we're doing, but a bit further than that, and probably a bit controversial, I would say in this chamber, we need some money from the NHS pumped into our services at the council. If we're diverting people away from GPs because they can't cope, we should be getting some of that funding to do what we're doing in our establishments, because it's really important, because more people are doing that. And I think we've got to do that. And I think Councillor Palmer touched on this. At England the other week, we had this open session, and I turned up at 9:30, and people were queuing out the door to get into England to have these tests. I was a bit disappointed, because I thought they were all queuing up to see me come in there, but they weren't. But it was a really important issue. And I think what we need, James needs to take the message back, and we've said this many, many times, is that we need that funding diverted into what we're doing at Robin Park, at Lee, and all over, because that is the future of tackling our health inabilities. And I know it's something Keith's been pushing and David's been pushing, and we've met with the sports club, but it's a really serious topic, and it's a really serious motion throughout. Health is everything, and it's really important. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reedy. Councillor Cunliffe, I invite you to sum up.
Yeah, thanks. Some of the things have been said, and I'm glad most people seem to be supporting this, because I do think it's really important. And one of the issues for me is that over the last few years, under austerity and the Tory government, public health budgets have been cut by about 25–26%, so a significant amount less for public health. And I recognise that the challenges that the NHS faces, actually public health and prevention and early intervention could actually relieve the pressure on the NHS. So it's really important that we get that funding for public health, for the budget and for suicide. I do feel, and I suppose I have a personal interest, I do feel, and there is a campaign currently going on about the introduction of a national testing for prostate cancer for men, because there isn't one now. And I have a personal interest in that, because 3 years ago I was diagnosed with it. But I was a nurse and I knew the symptoms. The symptoms are not really apparent until it's too late. I mean, like I say, I was a nurse and I recognised some of the things that were happening. But, you know, 12,000 men a year die from prostate cancer. There's no national screening process, and we need one. Men in the 40s and 50s should have the... PSA is not a really good measure, but it is an indicator that more needs to be done. So even if men of 40 and 50 were tested, had the PSA tested, it would certainly bring about a great degree more early diagnosis, because the earlier it's diagnosed, the better the chances. So I really think that something like that be done. And in terms of what Councillor Watson says, yeah, I recognise that people who served in the forces, who've been in combat situations and situations like that may have PTSD much higher than the national population. I also think we shouldn't forget that many women served in the armed forces as well. But I do think that what I'm asking for is a national men's strategy. So whether you've been in the armed forces or not, it applies to you. But I think one of the major concerns is the suicides. And I'm glad people have mentioned things like Andy's and the Mayor last year, Councillor Anderson, one of his charities was Manly. And there are a number of groups around that are offering support for men's health. And we need to be able to help them along to get funding, and it's part of his Mayor's charity last year. But actually, with a reinstatement of the public health budget, there'll be the opportunities to do that. And I hope that in the current government talking about moving towards more investment in prevention and early intervention, that we see significantly improvements in public health, because that's the only way we're going to address this. That's about it, thanks. I hope everybody votes for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunliffe. Can I put the motion to the vote? All those in favour of the motion, please show your hands. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. Thank you. So before I move on to the last motion, can I just advise any member who is declaring an interest in the winter fuel allowance motion that you should leave the chamber now. I'll give you a couple of minutes to do so. Thank you, everyone. We will be adding 15 minutes to the guillotine because of the 10-minute break and the 5 minutes that's just taken, just to make you aware. So motion number 5, a motion has been submitted by Councillor Watson, which is set out on page 171 of the agenda. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak in this motion. Now, this motion is a very important motion, and it's basically, it affects all pensioners, not in this borough, but throughout the country. The need for the winter fuel allowance for all pensioners. Now, as the cold months approach, many elderly individuals face not just the chill of the cold air, but the daunting reality of heating their homes, with many choosing between heating and eating. Many pensioners rely solely on a fixed income, which often doesn't stretch far enough to cover the essential living costs, let alone the added expense of heating during those winter months. The rise in energy prices over the past few years has exacerbated this issue, leaving many in vulnerable positions. The winter fuel allowance provided essential support, ensuring that no elderly person had to choose between heating their homes or providing food for the table. The cold winter months can be particularly harsh on our pensioners, leading to serious health complications such as respiratory illnesses and exacerbating pre-existing medical conditions. The winter fuel allowance for all helped to ensure that our elderly population stays warm and healthy during the harsh winter months. A warm home can significantly reduce the risk of illness, thereby reducing pressure on our already stretched NHS and healthcare system. Now, I'm a firm believer that we should judge a society on how we treat our elderly, especially our pensioners who have contributed to society and have paid into the pot throughout their whole lives, and have also built the communities we're all part of. So we have a strong moral obligation to ensure that they live comfortably throughout their later years. Now, to summarise, I urge you all to support this motion, well, what's left of us anyway, asking the UK government to reverse this atrocious decision to cut the winter fuel allowance for all pensioners. Now, It's not very often that I agree with the Labour Party, or in fact, the Labour Party agrees with me. Now, only today, Labour parties at the party's conference have voted in favour of a motion calling for ministers to reverse the cut for the winter fuel allowance, an embarrassing blow to Keir Starmer. So, what I'm asking is, are you going to side with the Labour Party members or toe the line and side with the government? Now, the winter fuel allowance should not have a financial threshold, and by supporting this motion, we send a powerful message to all our pensioners that we value and care. We value and care for those who have given us so much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is the motion seconded?
Happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Fish, do you wish to speak on the motion now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now, Madam Mayor. So, with this, I'd like to thank Councillor Watson for bringing this important motion. I think all members sat here this evening know a relative or someone who's going to go through poverty this winter, and by cutting this winter fuel allowance, we're basically saying you've paid into the pot, but okay, you can afford to pay the allowance, so you don't need it, but that's not fair. 4 MPs support this borough, but unfortunately don't support local residents. Not one of them stood up against this Labour government and went against the whip. So we hope tonight that you will support this motion and support residents within this borough by saying, look, regardless whether you've got wealth, because you're not born with wealth, you grow into wealth. As Paul's already said, our residents have paid into this pot time and time again. So let's vote on this motion tonight, and let's say to our residents, we stand by you and we fully support you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fish. An amendment to this motion has been received by Councillor Anderton.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, it's happened. It's finally happened. The opposition have asked us to write to government. Maybe we should buy a pack of pens now and give them to the chief executive, should we? Is this going to be a common trend? Yeah? Oh, I don't know, Stuart. I don't know. I think we may have to buy some purple pens for Alison when she's back. Well, anyway, it's happened. The opposition have said they want us to write to government. They want the council to write to government. Well, it's took them long enough to do this, almost 14 years. It's took them to do this, to kind of turn the tables the other way, when we've been doing it quite regularly over the last couple of years as well. But in doing this as well, what we're saying is, over that period of time, there was other instances that they could have kind of asked us to write to government when the cost of living was cut, cost of living pit was cut, when the granny tax was introduced, nothing, okay? But anyway, thank you for waking up and you're here now. There are 3 key reasons why we're amending this motion. And again, it was referred to several times in both the mover and the seconder. It's factually incorrect, what you've put down in your motion, okay? This motion is not factually incorrect, that Councillor Watson's put in. I thought you liked your stats and your facts as well, but clearly this one isn't factually correct. Not all pensioners are affected, as it currently stands, okay? Those in receipt of pension credit or other means-tested benefit will still get the winter fuel allowance. Just on the other one, which just came out then as well, not everyone is born into wealth. There's quite a few people born into wealth. Just thought I'd set that one straight as well. Not everyone, but some people are born into wealth. Secondly, there's nothing offered in this as a way forward or an ask of government in terms of what might be done differently. So, there is support at looking at thresholds, for example. When you listen to the focus groups on the TV, when you listen and you really go on the doors and knock and ask the wider public, there is some sympathy towards making the thresholds different. And also the motion on the agenda doesn't recognise the efforts of this council, which Councillor Gamble's neatly outlined in her update before. So our amendment is addressing those deficiencies in the motion and the blatant political opportunism that has come about in this. Okay? So in your rush to get this in, you've failed to really fully address the whole facts and appreciate the whole situation. When this was originally introduced in 1997 by the then Chancellor Gordon Brown, it was opposed. The universal application was absolutely opposed by the Conservatives, by those on the opposite benches as well. and many said it should be means tested. And that's a position we want to adopt today. I don't agree that the likes of members of the House of Lords, Jeremy Corbyn, for example, Theresa May, get this payment. Okay? I don't think they need it. Okay? Lord Sugar's another one you might want to throw in there. Some well-known faces that we know. In 2011, there was a really big campaign for those well-known faces to appealing to those who don't need it, to give it to charity or give it to those who do need it. This is why our amendment reflects a level of pragmatism around this and ensuring those who need it must get it. Simply reviewing the threshold can mean that the winter fuel allowance is fairly distributed then. So we do want to ask the government to reconsider, to go away, have a deep think about this, because there are other areas that can be looked at, and look at this again and come back with something different. A simple simple reversal just takes you back to square one with no other solution, no other way. What are you offering? Okay. The rich people will still get our money when that could go to other causes. If you just add half, isn't that better going back into there? Isn't it better distributing it across other main causes, but still allowing those people who, are 10, 11 pounds short to still get what the winter fuel allowance to help them over the line? So I just want to ask everyone in the room, those of you who are left, please support this amendment, okay? So we can write to the government effectively and offer space to reconsider, but also a solution to this. Thank you.
Is the amendment seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Raymond, do you wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Watson, do you accept the amendment to your motion?
I do not accept the amendment.
Councillor Watson, as you've advised that you do not accept the amendment, I will now put this to the vote. Can members now vote on accepting Councillor Anderton's amended motion? All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare the amended motion to be carried, and we will now debate this as a substantive motion. So just for clarification, I will read out the motion. The Council write to the Government asking them to reconsider their decision to cut the winter fuel allowance for affected pensioners and review the proposed threshold to determine eligibility for winter fuel payments. Do any members wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been following this closely, and I could go on and tell you about the £1 billion it saved. I could go on and tell you about what I think rubbish the £22 billion black hole is, and how you've spent £12 billion for junior doctors and train drivers. I'm not even going to go into it. Do you know why? Because something more important got said today, Madam Mayor, which has totally changed my speech. It was when the vicar stood there. And he said, when we vote tonight, we vote for God on behalf of our residents. And what's been done tonight to cleverly sneak around a motion to reverse is sick. To turn around, and you said Paul Watson doesn't go any further. You haven't put a figure on it. You've told him, look at it, it's a clever move. You know, I know what you're doing. But what is it with the Labour Party, Madam Mayor? At least the Tories sometimes have 100 backbenchers who rebel. You lot, you'll sell your own morals out. I will never sell my morals out. You'll see us vote against each other if we feel that's what's right. So I'm going to ask you all a question. We've already voted on the motion, so now it comes down to very cleverly, do I vote against your amendment? When you became a councillor, did you become a councillor to progress? And I know you didn't, because you've changed over the last couple of years. Progress your political career, or did you do it to be a champion for your residents? Now, if you'd been given the choice before your leader had done this, and you got asked, did you want to end it, would you have said yeah? So it's okay now saying, oh, this rich person gets it, this rich person. Yeah, it probably wouldn't be better if it had been means tested at 30, 40 grand a year. But we don't stand there now. The motion was simple. It was a way to give you a chance for your own morals and your own moral compass to say you're with your residents, but instead, as usual with the Labour Party, you've all picked political party over your own residents. Do you know what? Being a councillor really don't mean that much to me. I would throw it in bin right now than go against one single one of my residents who I knew was right. So do you know what? I like a lot of you, but you should be absolutely ashamed of yourselves. You really should. I'm not even going to stick around for the vote, Madam Mayor. Quite frankly, after listening to that, I'm absolutely disgusted. But, Paul, what a motion, and thank you very much for trying to speak up for our residents who've been crying out to us, some of them actually crying. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So more grandstanding. So let's start talking, I mean, for us as socialists, I'll be quite honest with you, really, really uncomfortable with this sort of motion, with the fact that we're having to do this. And I'm not going to go into why and the reasons for that. But, I mean, Councillor Anderson touched on it, the collective amnesia coming from them benches over there is astounding. 13 years of probably the worst government this country's ever seen. Not one motion comes from those benches of the cuts. Not one. £400 last year, cost of living crisis. Not just the poor pension, the lot. Everybody gets the 400 quid took off them. Does anything come from you? Nothing. Yeah? The granny tax. That was a good one, wasn't it? Yeah? Have we all forgot about that? They wanted 100 grand of your home, your assets. Nothing. Nothing again. Nothing from them benches. So this is what this is about. We know what this is about. It's about grandstanding. Perhaps it should have been done better. In terms of like looking at who should pay. But I don't want my public money going to Elton John. Not a chance. He's got enough money. And already been mentioned about Lord Sugar and all them. This money should not be going to them. Now, you'd be surprised from that, and I know this has been voted at the conference today, but a quarter of pension is going to shock you now, and millionaires in this country. And the number of pensioners that are millionaires has quadrupled in the last 10 years. Should our public money be going to them? Because if that's what you're saying, I don't think it should, personally. And I think it's a perfectly good, reasonable attempt to try and redistribute the wealth. The cuts to social care, disability, hospitals, schools, public services, nothing from them. Not a beep. So for me, it's like, what can we do in this chamber? The amendment alters very little. We're still asking the government to look at it and see what they can do. I think it needs to be looked at. So it's not semantics to suggest, and that grandstanding storming out, unless it's the time, I don't know, but it's absolutely nonsense. It's already been put on your desk tonight. It's been mentioned. You're still in the chamber. No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Well, I only stood up and everybody thought I was leaving, so... But the amount of interventions this council's put in place, I don't know any other council that's done as much, and sure we should, and that stuff, the sort of stuff that we should be doing. The attendance allowance, that's £5.5 grand. We should be pushing that. There's a lot of pensioners out there who don't get the attendance allowance. If they get the attendance allowance, by the way, they get pension credits. So that's the sort of motions you should be getting out there to your residents. This should have come from the Tory headquarters. Ray should have been moving this tonight. I know Councillor Cunliffe calls you the tribute band, but you've gone on the stage tonight, the Tory tribute band. You've took over the Tory party, for God's sake. So I'll be voting for the amendment, and nobody's happy about this, but this is just grandstanding. We're going to get more of it, I understand that. But you've not been there 13 years, I get that. But for 5 years, you've sat there, done now. It's all absolute rubbish. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor O'Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for letting me speak. I was just wondering why those who were over, I mean, I wasn't aware of this, is it those who were over 65 who have had to leave? I mean, we all have a vested interest in nearly everything, so I'm just wondering why they were asked to leave. I don't know if there's any explanation for that.
None of them were asked to leave, Councillor O'Byrne. They declared an interest because they may have been entitled to the winter fuel benefit. So they declared an interest and left of their own accord.
All right, that's fine, like you said, but we often do all have an interest in every issue that comes up. But I consider this a complete and utter attack on pensioners. I'm actually shocked by Sturmer and what the Labour Party have decided to try and introduce. And they have said that they're going to ignore what the people in the Labour Party have voted for today at the conference. They've voted against it, and yet they're still going to push it through. I think I'm quite shocked that I do think you have purposely twisted Councillor Watson's motion just to make yourselves look good, because there was no way to get around this voting against it. But when we're talking about Elton John and we're talking about Lord Sugar, we're also talking about maybe a teacher or a doctor or somebody who's worked hard as a mechanic. They are also being deprived of it, not all the super rich. With what you're proposing, there's no figures, is there? So how much is it going to be? How much can you earn? So if you've saved a bit and paid, you know, worked hard and paid in all your life, are you not entitled to get it? My cousin gets it and she gives it away every year. I'm not saying everybody does that. I don't think always the super rich should get it, but I think why on earth is attack the pensioners when there were many other ways to save this money is beyond me. I was at a ladies group yesterday. I'm doing a lunch for pensioners out of my own pocket next week, so it's like I am putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm absolutely shocked, and I am organising a protest against this attack on pensioners. And you are all very welcome to attend. There'll be lots of pensioners there. We won't be rioting. We won't be throwing anything. We're just making our voices heard, because the people who's worked hard for this country all their lives and paid in deserve to get a little bit of something out, when lots of people who haven't paid a penny are getting paid a lot of money, and when we're giving money to for climate change. Why are pensioners not being put first instead of being the first victims and targets of this Labour government? I'm absolutely disgusting. I won't be voting either. I'm going now.
Councillor Gerard.
And on that note, thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Paul, for bringing this motion, and Dan for doing an amendment, just altering a few words, but doesn't alter the facts. The fact is, Councillor Hunter's mentioned about giving money away to millionaire pensioners and stuff like that. Well, let's not forget it was a Labour government that introduced the winter fuel allowance. I don't see anyone probably across on that side of the chamber were against that then, and they shouldn't be against it now. The point is there's been an airbrain and fast. I've been in power a couple of weeks and targeting the pensioners straight away. And as has been mentioned, and probably will be mentioned, there's other areas where you could actually save money. For me, it would have been those on the higher tax brackets in the super tax plan. If they qualify for child benefit, reconsider that. That's another benefit for all, for the super rich as well. But this here, if you get just above the pension credit, I think it's been well publicised. Someone who's just about £3 over the pension credit limit, but loses out on £300. That's not right. And to rush this through without reconsidering it is completely wrong in my book. You know, there's lots of ways to save money, and this just seems to be an easy target, the pension credit. And then we're hearing about now single person discount might be going, you know, and stuff like that. Well, we'll have to see, won't we? And to say that we have just sat here and allowed the Tory government, when it was in power, to do whatever. Don't forget, we supported every single motion that you brought, and it cost me a fair few pence. And also, that the motions that we have brought to here against the previous government and the council has been referred back to Cabinet and never seen light of day again. So what you were saying there, Lawrence, is wrong. But I'm in a quandary because I do think, you know, it does need re-looking at. We nearly said reform then, but I won't say that. But it does need looking at. This has really been just rushed through, and because they won't back down, because obviously it's a new government and they won't see sense. They're sticking by their guns rather than re-looking at other options. So for me, if you all vote for this, I don't think pensioners who are just above that limit will forgive you. It's just wrong. I mean, our borough especially, one of the most deprived boroughs in the country. Our ward is one of the most deprived wards in the country. Many of them will have just be above the pension credit threshold because they might have saved a bit of money, they've paid into private pension schemes, done what the governments at the towns have told them to do, and now they're getting the boot stuck into them. It's completely wrong. Vote with your conscience, not with your paymasters, and do what the union members have done at the conference today and vote against it. Thank you.
Councillor Myler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank Councillors Watson and Vish for bringing it forward. I do think that the winter fuel allowance is a vital source of protection for one of the most vulnerable groups in society, and I'm not for the amendments on it, just because I feel like there are ways that this could have been saved, the money could have been saved before taking it off pensioners. I feel like that was a vulnerable group that's been targeted very quickly with not much warning. We can't forget that pensioners have been paying into the system for their entire lives, no matter how much they're making, and there are going to be a lot of particularly working class pensioners that are going to be above the threshold for this. People like teachers that we know personally, working in a community centre, we see them coming in, we know that they're concerned about how they're going to be heating their homes, and I don't think that should be an issue that we're having in 2024 in a first world country. We're having pensioners who are worried about how they're going to heat the homes this winter. I don't believe that the government have looked into all the other options before making this decision, and I feel I'm not going to be supporting the amendment just because, like I said, there are going to be groups that are above the threshold. There's not been any, there's not been any figures stated for where that would be held in either motion, but yeah, thank you for bringing the motion forward. I do think it's something that did need to be spoke about. Thank you.
Councillor Cleeve.
Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak on this motion. I will be supporting the amendment tonight. I do think there was a different way it could possibly have been handled, but we are where we are. We've got a £22 billion black hole. As elected members, we should all be supporting our residents. Sorry, can I borrow your leaflet? I've put mine in my bag to take home with me. Councillor Gambles has already explained how much money we've given out, majority of that to pensioners. As elected members, every single one of you should be supporting your residents, helping them get every penny they're entitled to, not bringing motions here. How can you possibly think it's right that the likes of Nigel Farage, who you all hero worship, should be entitled to a fuel allowance when he is actually Eton Public schoolboy that was actually born into wealth, even though you're denying it doesn't happen. So, yes, we should be supporting the vulnerable, which we are doing as a council. We're actually trying our hardest to give every penny out to everybody who deserves it. So, Councillor Anderson, I will be supporting your motion, but I'll also be getting my backside out there and I'll be supporting every single resident who needs my support in our ward, as I know my colleagues will do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam. Yes, I think the £22 billion black hole did come as a shock to this Labour government. I think the amendment is a sensible way forward. This council, along with the DWP, are trying to maximise the people who actually claim pension credit, and there is a big campaign which is going on currently.
I think there are people who need to be targeted more effectively, and that's why the amendment we should support tonight unanimously. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Sorry, it's only a quick one and it's something on Councillor Gerard had said, so I will be supporting the amendment. But may I just clarify what you said? So you're not for taking the pension credits, but you are for taking the child benefit. Is that what you... It is what you mentioned earlier.
I'll allow that one, Councillor Gerard.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if you misheard me, but I said, you know, you're taking the winter fuel allowance off all pensioners. Above the pension credit. Above the pension credit. Above the pension credit threshold is what I said. Right, well, I'll tell you about all pensions above the credit threshold. But what I said, there was other alternatives, like the ones in the higher tax bracket who are earning millions are still entitled to child benefit. Yes, they are. Can't get child benefit. Well, feel to differ, but there is other ways to save money. Aye? Yeah. So, another point of order. It's been mentioned in here tonight about giving all school children paid breakfasts at schools.
It's not part of the mention.
Eaton?
Councillor Gerard, we're running out of time. That's not actually part of the motion.
All right, you just know you're in the wrong. Just vote with your conscience. Just do what you want.
Councillor Raymond, as you have reserved your right to speak as seconder, I invite you to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Generally, I'm an advocate of universalism when it comes to the benefit system. But when it is for a particular product, in this case energy, it does actually make sense to means test it. As we all know, there are people in our society, pensioners in our society, who have broad shoulders, millionaires who obviously can do without this payment. So where I would urge the government, and where I do believe that we can make a difference, is to ask them to look at the thresholds of income and extend that so more people can qualify for the payment or any alternatives to it. But Madam Mayor, I cannot believe that we have political chameleons in this chamber, but we do. Councillor Watson, that's a very sudden change of tone from you and your colleagues. You spent a decade and a half propping up austerity of all kinds under a government led by the Conservatives and supported by you against ordinary people who suffered from cost of living crisis, cuts to universal credit, threats of rescinding the household support fund, two-child benefit cap, bedroom tax, and above all, you didn't write to the government when the government took every 60 pence of every pound that we used to spend in this community for very, very critical services, and that includes people in Atherton. Madam Mayor, we are very happy to listen to criticism of Labour's policy. But, Madam Mayor, I refuse to take any criticism from the opposition in this chamber. Thank you.
Councillor Anderton, I invite you to sum up on the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might drag this out, but we'll see if we can get it done quicker. A lot of what you were saying is exactly the words in the motion. Thresholds, paid in, yeah, we get it. You should have something back out of that. Needs looking at, that's what we're asking for, to reconsider. Okay, the amendment is not straying too far away from what you've put in. It just wasn't factually correct. All of the opposition, even the ones that have now left because they're too scared to go to this vote. Oh, they're also in reception, probably waiting, okay. But I'm glad you have stayed, but the fact it was wrong. It's not all pensioners, and every one of you has stood up and said, all pensioners are having the winter fuel. They're not. They're not. It's misinformation. I think we've had enough of that tonight, haven't we, in terms of what's gone out there. You know, it's about supporting this motion, which is more pragmatic and factual, making sure that we send a clear directive to the government, okay, in terms of what we want, okay. If you don't support it, you're supporting all the millionaires and those with the broadest shoulders to yet again still take that winter fuel allowance. when we could use that money, and we've had plenty of other areas we could spend that money tonight as well. I was quite shocked at Councillor Hunt's statistic, around, you know, a quarter of pensioners are millionaires. Wow, I didn't know that. Okay. But yes, all councillors, it needs looking at. That's what we're asking for. You want it looking at, not reversing. A reversal means it's been looked at, it's done, it's a done deal, get rid of it. You all use different language. I don't think you read the motion or listened to the Mayor when she read out the amended, which is another substantive, motion. Reconsider. You even used that. Some of they're now gone, so I don't know why I'm pointing. But reconsider was used. Threshold has been used. Yes, it's about protecting those who are the most vulnerable. We recognise pensioners are a vulnerable group. And by moving that threshold just by a couple of points, or however many points, I'm not an economic expert where it should be, but we're saying get the experts on it and make sure that you do it properly. And that's what the motion is about tonight, and I hope you can support it. And I will be calling, Madam Mayor, for a named vote on this.
For a name vote, we need 10 people to support that. That's carried. So I will ask you to use your keypads to vote for or against or abstain the motion. So we have 31 for, 1 abstention and 2 against. So I say that that vote is now carried. Thank you all. That concludes tonight's business. Have a safe journey home. Hope the rain stopped.